Chapter 36:16. What worried the 9 warriors and the leaders of the Grim Reaper happened. Eventually, Luli made the decision to kill the 4 as a warning to others. Now that Luli had made the decision, nobody could change his mind, given his status in the Grim Reaper. Luli was not a saint. He didn't even think he was a good man. In his life, he had implicated many innocent people and countless warriors. But he believed that he was a man of principle. He would never do something beastly on purpose. What Lewin did had crossed Li's bottom line. As far as he was concerned, it was not something humans would do but beasts. Even if he ran into them on the way, he would punish them if he had the ability. Not to mention his subordinates, his sons. He didn't have much affection for Lewin. He didn't have the same affection as his own son. But after so many years, he still had feelings for a dog. Lewin was adopted by his cousin, Lu Hongyu. If it were not so serious, Luli wouldn't make such a big fuss. Not only did he rape the young ladies of good families, he even wanted to torture them to death and exterminate their entire clans. What was the difference between him and a beast? What was the use of a son like this? As the son of Luli had to think twice before he did anything. He wondered if he would bring shame to Luli and the Lu family. Apart from being furious, Luli didn't kill Lewin entirely because he was selfless and righteous. He was more concerned about the Lu family and the Lu alliance. As the soul of the Grim Reaper, Luli acted like a big boss. But he knew very well that he was not a completion warrior. He was not the real boss, and he couldn't do whatever he wanted. Trouble arose from within. Now the biggest threat to him and the Lu family came from within. Luli knew that Emperor Li and the others treated him with respect on the surface and followed his lead in public on many occasions. But they didn't really surrender. It was just that the Grim Reaper needed him. Luli even believed that some powerful warriors wanted to kill him because he had violated their interests. Luli's group was so powerful that Luli didn't want to fight for benefits. The experts of his faction had been competing fiercely in recent years. During the decades he had been trapped in the Ice River Valley, his faction had fought for a lot of benefits, both openly and secretly. The Death God's plate was only so big. If their faction's profits increased, the other faction's profits would naturally decrease. Now that the Grim Reaper was stable, there might be some big shots who would kill him out of impulse. Luli wouldn't be able to avoid the sudden assassination. He wouldn't even know how he died. Even if they didn't assassinate him, if the other factions united, it would evolve into a true internal strife. Therefore, while Luli seemed to be enjoying the limelight, he was treading on thin ice. The Lu family and the Lu alliance were too weak to withstand any setbacks. He couldn't give the other giants or the experts of the other factions anything to use against him. He couldn't afford to make a mistake. He couldn't afford to take a wrong step. If Lewin's matter wasn't handled properly, it would be a source of trouble. Luli thought it was worthwhile to kill Lu, and so many warriors of the Lu alliance could have a better life. Of course, this had crossed the line. To him, Lewin was no longer Lewin, but a beast. He didn't feel it was a pity to kill a son like this. Jiang Qiling and the others were at the Lu mansion. Hearing Li's words, they almost fainted. Bai Xiaoshuang was losing her patience. She was about to fly to the Hall of Penalty. Lu Ling exerted her strength to suppress Bai Xiaoshuang. She shouted coldly, "Shuanger, what are you doing? Xiaoxue, keep an eye on him. Lewin will die faster if he causes trouble in this situation." Jiang Qiling had no idea what to do. She turned to Lu Ling and said, "Sis, you are the only one who can save Lewin. Please go talk to Lu Li. It doesn't matter who does it." Lu Ling waved her hand and ordered the rune formation to be activated. At the same time, she looked at Lu Renhuang and said, "Father, at this moment, nobody can go out. We cannot put my brother in a difficult position, and we cannot disgrace him. Lewin has only himself to blame. Let's leave him alone. Nobody can change my brother's mind." Jiang Qiling's legs were weak. She passed out. She knew very well that Lu Li was a stubborn man. Once he had made up his mind, nobody could change his mind. Bai Xiaoshuang began to sob. Bai Qiuxue sighed, and Qi Shi'er burst into tears as well. Yin Xingxi, Ling Long, Qi Dingdong, and the others didn't know what to do either. They comforted Bai Xiaoshuang and the others. Alas, this bastard deserves it. Never mind, never mind. Lu Xingyang knocked on the ground with his walking stick, turned around, and walked back to his yard. The other leaders of the Lu Alliance didn't know what to say. They only thought Lu Li had gone too far. How could anyone be free from mistakes? Luin had never made any serious mistakes. This was the first time he had done so. Severe punishment was enough. Why did Lu Li have to kill him? Would the other leaders of the Grim Reaper say anything if Luin wasn't killed? Stay in the Lu mansion. Nobody is allowed to go out. Brother, you have done the right thing. You are too shallow. Brother, you are doing this for the sake of the entire Lu Alliance. Lu Ling understood Lu Li's mind. She didn't feel good either. She watched Luin grow up, and now he was about to be killed by Lu Li. It was not a good reputation for a father to kill a son. This would affect Lu Li's reputation. For the rest of his life, Lu Li might have a guilty conscience, which could lead to inner demons. Lu Li. A voice came to Lu Li's ears. It was from the Queen of Wings. The Queen of Wings said, "Children will make some mistakes. Do me a favor and don't be angry. Kill the other 3 and put Luin on death row. Put him on death row for 10,000 years. Give him a chance." Lu Li, Emperor Mo replied as well. "We all know you are upset. You have been protecting the Grim Reaper's rule, but those bastards have been trying to break it. Alas, you must think of it this way. There will be some twists and turns on the road to growth. Everyone will make some mistakes. As long as we work together, there is nothing we cannot overcome. I think we should just let it go. I will take over. I guarantee that everything will be done beautifully, and no one will say a word about it." Emperor Li and Emperor Yu sent messages as well. They were not asking for mercy for the other 3 young masters. Instead, they said they wanted to kill the other 3 young masters, but they said they would protect Lu, and Lu Li didn't say a word. When the last warrior finished, Lu Li waved his hand and asked Luin, "Luin, do you have anything else to say?" Hearing Lu Li's words, Luin trembled even more. He raised his head, and his expression became ferocious. He stared at Lu Li and moved his lips for a while before he said, "I have nothing to say. I am willing to die. I only have one request." Lu Li said emotionlessly, "Speak." Luin stood up slowly, but he was still on his knees. His expressions were calmer, and he stopped trembling. He cupped his fists and said, "Father, I want you to execute me in person. I will have no regrets if I can die in your hands." Chapter 36:17. What? The entire city was in an uproar. A father killing a son was already unheard of. Now, the son wanted his father to do it himself? That was unheard of. The atmosphere in the city was suffocating. Many warriors were nervous, fearing that Lu Li would be enraged and they would suffer as well. Ha ha! Lu Li laughed coldly. It was so cold that the several young ladies in the Hall of Penalty were shivering. Lu Li looked at Luin emotionlessly and said, "Bastard, do you think I don't have the guts to kill you?" "No." Lu Li looked up at Lu Li with determination, like a stubborn child. He said calmly, "Since I was born, my father has never cared about me or hit me. Now I'm going to die. To die in the hands of my father will fulfill one of Luin's wishes. Do it, father. I don't blame you. I am guilty and I deserve to die." With that said, Luin closed his eyes, raised his head, and waited calmly. He didn't look like he was faking it. Instead, it seemed he really wanted Lu Li to kill him. Lu Li was stunned. If Luin were to quibble, beg him, or even scold him hysterically, Lu Li wouldn't be soft-hearted. Luin was willing to die, but his words made Lu Li feel uncomfortable. "Never cared about me? Wishes? Don't blame you?" These words hurt Lu Li. He thought about it carefully. Since he was a kid, he had never cared about Luin. He never scolded him, not to mention hit him. He could hear the deep resentment in Luin's words. Luin hated him. He had never treated him as his real son. As a matter of fact, Lu Li didn't care much about this adopted son. He always thought that he was healthy and could have children. Therefore, when Luin was adopted, he didn't see Luin as a son, but as a nephew. He just wanted to comfort Jiang Qiling and Bai Xiaoshuang and satisfy their wish to be a mother. Lu Li asked himself, from the beginning to the end, he never accepted Luin as a son. Lewin's status was similar to that of other nephews. He didn't give Lewin any fatherly love, nor did he fulfill his duties as a father. From Lewin's perspective, he had been taught since he was young that he had a very great father, a very powerful father. But this father didn't seem to love him. There was no difference between having or not having it. Luli said nothing. After a while, Lewin realized that Luli didn't do anything. He opened his eyes and said, "What is it, father? Can't do it anymore. Or do you think killing me will dirty your hands? Should I kill myself?" Buzz, a dagger appeared in Lewin's hand. This dagger was shining brightly, and there were divine runes all over it. It was obvious that it was a supreme treasure that could cut through iron like mud. He put his hand on his neck, looked at Luli with a smile, and said, "Father, give the order. One word from you, and Lewin will be beheaded. Speaking of which, living in this world is meaningless. To be able to die in front of you, I feel that it's worth it." Luli remained expressionless and said nothing. He stared at Lewin, and Lewin stared back at him, not to be outdone. The father and son looked at each other like two lions staring at each other. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli finally spoke. "Lewin, do you hate me?" As the saying went, one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. As a leader, Luli must take care of his reputation. At the moment, many people in the city were looking into this matter. If Luli continued this topic, he would be exposing his own dirty linen. That being said, Luli was a man of integrity. He believed that his position in the Grim Reaper would not be shaken because of this. "Hey!" Lewin was confused. Then, he shook his head and said, "I don't hate you. You are my father, the pride of our family, the hero of the 9 universes, the savior of the divinity, a legend of the second plane, a master of the third plane, and now a leader of the Grim Reaper. To me, you are a superhero. You have done a lot for us. I respect you and admire you. I am not your son. It is understandable that you don't like me, don't love me, and never care about me. But what I want to ask is, if you don't want me as your son, why did you adopt me? Do you know how hard it has been for me to bear the identity of your son all these years? How depressed was it? How painful was it? Hard? Depressed? Pain?" Luli was taken aback again. He was confused. Ha ha ha. Seeing Li's expression, Lewin suddenly burst into laughter. After a while, he said, "See, father, you don't care about me at all. Sometimes, you even forget that I am your son, right? I am your son, but I don't dare to do anything. Apart from cultivating, I just cultivate because I am afraid that I will bring you trouble and ruin your reputation. I am not talented. You don't know this, do you? I don't want others to say that Li's son is a good-for-nothing. Therefore, I have to work harder than others. Even so, I am still a good-for-nothing. I can't even reach the 6th tribulation. I don't have a life of my own. I don't have my own freedom. I don't even have my own name. I only have one identity, and that is your son. This identity is too tiring for me to carry. The funniest thing is, you don't care about me. You don't even care about me. In your eyes, I am nothing. You don't care about me, but I have to carry the identity of your son. I try my best to bring glory to you, but there is nothing I can do. My abilities are weak, and so are my other abilities. I am a good-for-nothing, but I am your son. I can't even be a good-for-nothing. Do you know how hard it has been for me all these years? Have you ever really cared about my cultivation? If you didn't let me adopt you, I think my life would be different. Even if I was a good-for-nothing, I could at least be a playboy. But as your son, I can't even be a playboy. For decades, there was no news from you. The entire Lu Alliance was under great pressure. I was under even more pressure. After you sent me the message, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to be tired anymore. I didn't want to pretend anymore. I didn't want to live anymore. I wanted to commit suicide, but I thought about it. I didn't want to. I had to do something. I had to make you look at me. I had to let you control me for once. So, I committed a serious crime. I acted recklessly. I still have some regrets now. Those young ladies were not in the wrong, but they were undeserved. We ruined their lives. We wiped out 2 families and killed many innocent people. I can't be forgiven. I am willing to die. Father, I really don't blame you. I can only blame my bad luck. I have shamed you. I have done things that are worse than animals. I deserve to die. Father, I am leaving now. I will be filial to you in my next life." After saying that, Lewin closed his eyes, swung the dagger in his hand, and ruthlessly cut his neck. However, just as his dagger cut his skin, he suddenly felt a strong hand grab the dagger, and he could no longer cut it. He opened his eyes and saw the guilt in Lu Li's eyes. An idea came to his mind. He choked with sobs and said, "Father, I am wrong. You said that when a man does something wrong, he must be brave enough to take responsibility. Please let me apologize with my death." Lu Li moved his hand and grabbed Luin's dagger. Lewin said in a deep voice, "You did wrong, but so did I. Not teaching a son is the fault of a father. I will make up for it for you." Chapter 36:18. Lu Li was touched by Luin's heartfelt words. As Lewin said, if Lewin were to cry, beg, or even curse, Lu Li would not be soft-hearted. But Lewin was seeking death. More importantly, the reason why he made mistakes was because he was Lu Li's son. He was under pressure and lived a life more miserable than others. Yet, he could not gain Lu Li's approval. Lewin's life was tiring and painful. He would rather die than live. Therefore, he had fallen. He wanted to indulge himself for once, so that Lu Li would look him in the eye. Even if Lu Li were to kill him, Lewin would be satisfied. Lu Li felt guilty. As Lewin said, if Lewin didn't want Lewin as a son, why did he adopt Lewin? If he became Lu Hongyu's son, he would be able to live a more comfortable and beautiful life. Being Lu Li's nephew was better than being Lu Li's son. Maybe it was because of his birth parents that Lewin was not talented. Lu Hongyu and her husband were from the mortal world. They were only at the second or third tribulation, and that would be the end of their lives. Lewin had reached the peak of the fifth tribulation thanks to his hard work and the consumption of treasure materials. The Middle King realms had recruited many elites, and those children were talented. After some time in the Lu Alliance, they had been cultivating fast. Thousands of them had reached the sixth tribulation. Lewin was the young master of the Lu Alliance, but he was only at the peak of the fifth tribulation. How could he hold his head high? Sometimes having a halo above his head could be a glory, and sometimes a burden. Lu Li could empathize with Lewin's pain over the years. Because of this, Lu Li felt guilty. At the end of the day, Lewin's mistake was largely due to him. In essence, Lewin was a good person. He was not an unpardonably evil person, nor was he possessed by a demon. It was just that the pressure was too great, and he had nowhere to release it. He became muddle-headed and went to the extreme, seeking death. Lu Li's words stunned everyone. Many warriors in the city were stunned as well. Lu Li wanted to atone for Lewin. How was he going to redeem it? Was he going to die in Lewin's place? On this thought, many leaders of the Grim Reaper panicked. Wing King, Feather King, and King Mo flew over and stood next to Lu Li nervously. "Lu Li, don't do anything stupid." Lu Li, calm down. Lu Ling and Lu Ren Wang sent a message at once. Lu Ling flew over as well, fearing that Lu Li would die for Lewin. Many other patriarchs and great patriarchs of the Lu family also flew over, staring at Lu Li nervously. Emperor Mo patted Lu Li's shoulder and said, "Lu Li, it is good that he knows he is wrong. Things had already happened, and there was no way to reverse it no matter what. We can only think of ways to make up for it. There are still many survivors in those two destroyed families, and we can focus on supporting them, making them even stronger than before. We can give them a piece of territory, and they will be able to develop even better. We can also give a lot of compensation to these young ladies who have suffered." "Compensation?" Lu Li said with a bitter smile. "Those young ladies have been ruined by those bastards. Can they bring those innocent people back to life? Many of those who were killed were still children. Is it something that can be made up with some compensation? Those are the children of the god of death. If we bully them at will, who will follow us in the future?" Lu Li's words weighed on everyone's mind. King of Wings said in a hurry, "Lu Li, don't be too hard on yourself. If you want to punish yourself, then we will be guilty of not supervising you well. We will bear the consequences with you." "That is right." King of Feather nodded and said, "I have been in charge of the Hall of Penalty and Intelligence recently. I cannot shirk my responsibility. Lu Li, if you must punish someone, then punish me. Lu Li was speechless at Emperor Mo, king of wings and king of feathers jokes. He waved his hand and said, "Don't say any more. I will take care of this myself. I don't care about the other three. I will take responsibility for my son's mistakes." Lu Li turned to Luin and asked, "How many did you kill?" Luin was flustered. Under Lu Li's stern gaze, he answered timidly, "More than 100, about 130. Then let's count it as 150 lives." Lu Li thought about it and said, "Luin, you still cannot live. But after you die, I will protect your soul and help you rebuild your body so that you can live again. I will atone for your other sins. I will cut off 150 pieces of my flesh to atone for the wrong souls. We will talk about the compensation later. Are you satisfied with this punishment?" "What?" Everyone was moved. Lu Li still wanted to kill Luin, but if he could keep his soul, then Luin would not die completely. Rebuilding his body would affect Luin's cultivation. That being said, Luin's realm was not high and his future was not promising. On the other hand, rebuilding his body would be done with treasured materials which could make him more powerful. Luin's punishment was nothing, but Lu Li's decision to cut off his flesh moved many people. How much had Lu Li sacrificed for the god of death? If it were not for Lu Li, the god of death would have been destroyed, let alone the god of death. He was one of the 12 masters. As the leader of the god of death, how could he cut off his own flesh for such a trivial matter, which was not a big deal in the eyes of the higher-ups? Wasn't it going too far? Based on Lu Li's power, it would not be a big deal even if he had to cut off all his flesh, let alone more than 100 pieces. At worst, he would suffer some pain and he would recover after some treatment. The problem was, who was Lu Li? What was his status? Lu Li represented the face of the god of death and the dignity of the god of death. Cutting off his flesh in public. Where was the dignity of a leader of the god of death? Where was the dignity of a leader of the god of death? This would affect Lu Li's reputation as well. No, before the others could say anything, Luin's expressions changed. He said in fear, "Father, no. You are a precious person. How can you be humiliated like this? This is my fault. How can I let you suffer? I'll take these 150 cuts. After that, I'll just have to die. Father, I am begging you. I am begging you." With that said, Luin kowtowed to Lu Li. Tears ran down from his eyes, and he was filled with remorse. "Shut up," Lu Li shouted in a cold and stern tone. Luin didn't dare to say anything else. Lu Li looked at the representatives who didn't dare to say anything. They all knelt on the ground in fear. How could they afford to let a leader of the god of death cut off his flesh to apologize to them? "What?" Lu Li asked with a frown, seeing that the families of the victims didn't say anything. "Is it too little? How about 10 times more? How about 1,500? Agree with him. 150. Seeing this, King of Wings secretly sent a message to the families of the victims. A family patriarch of small family came to his senses and said, "No, number 150 is enough, enough." The other family patriarchs and patriarchs of the other families nodded in agreement. They wanted to say that it was unnecessary. The more Lu Li acted like this, the more afraid they were. "Okay, that's settled then." Lu Li nodded. Then he waved the dagger in his hand, and pieces of flesh flew off from his arm. Blood splashed, and the pieces of flesh fell to the ground. It was a ghastly sight. Chapter 36:19. Lu Li's hand moved up and down. Pieces of flesh came off. Even Emperor of Feather, Emperor of Wings, and Emperor of Mo found it hard to watch. They all turned around. The young ladies, family patriarchs, and patriarchs of small families were scared out of their wits. All of them were trembling. For these small families, an elder, the Grim Reaper, was a great figure. They could only look up to the Grand Elder, and the Big Shot was a legendary figure. Now, one of the most powerful warriors was humiliated because of their young ladies. He had to cut his own flesh to make amends. More importantly, he had to sentence his son to death. Even though Lu Li's soul could be preserved, it was a severe punishment nonetheless. Those family patriarchs and family patriarchs did not feel good, nor did they feel the joy of revenge. All they felt was fear and dread. They were not afraid of Lu Li's revenge. What they feared was Lu Li's subordinates, or the powerful warriors of the Lu Alliance. If they asked their boss to cut his flesh, then they would let all of their families die miserably. One of the family patriarchs was smart. He crawled over, hugged Lu Li's leg, and said, "Enough, enough. Emperor Lu, stop. You have done enough. If you go on, we will have to die to make amends." "Yes, yes." The other patriarchs kowtowed to Lu Li in fear as well, and said, "Emperor Lu, thank you for upholding justice for us. You are a good man. You have done enough. We are happy. Don't go on, or we will have to do the same." "Father." Luin burst into tears. He took out a dagger and said, "It is my fault. Please let me suffer. If you go on like this, I will have to crush my own soul to make amends." Lu Li had cut off dozens of pieces of flesh. There was almost no flesh on one of his hands. He looked at the family patriarch of a small family who was kowtowing and who was in tears and full of remorse. Lu Li sighed and said, "All right, Luin, you do the rest yourself. Emperor Mo and Emperor you deal with the rest." Lu Li knew that he had crossed the line. He would only be putting on a show if he persisted. There was no need for him to put on a show in his position among the Grim Reapers. His true position was not something that could be achieved by putting on a show. Instead, it was brought about by one bloody battle after another and one victory after another. Lu Li looked at Luin and said, "Emperor of Feather, execute this unfilial son of mine. Keep his soul safe and arrange for me to rebuild my body. After reconstructing his body, send him to the Valley of Condemnation to repent." Emperor of Feather nodded. Lu Li flew into the Lu mansion and disappeared. As soon as Lu Li left, the entire Tianyue city felt less oppressive. Everyone in the Hall of Penalty was relieved. Even the higher-ups of the Grim Reaper were trembling with fear. Lu Li wasn't angry at all. Instead, he was punishing himself. But all the higher-ups of Grim Reaper felt that this was more frightening than being angry. In the backyard of the Li clan, Emperor Li sighed slightly. He could feel the atmosphere, and even he himself felt relieved. Lu Li's power was so terrifying. In the past, he had dreamed of challenging Lu Li's position. Now, it seemed that there was no chance at all. Lu Li's position as the leader had been engraved in the hearts of all the powerful warriors. "Family patriarch," a patriarch of the Li family asked in a low voice, "Since Luin is not going to die, can our son of it be *H fool?" Emperor Li snorted. He threw him a cold glance and said, "Luin is not dead because Lu Li cut off his own flesh. Are you saying I should go out and cut myself? Then go to hell." That patriarch touched his nose in embarrassment. The Li family had many playboys like this. It wouldn't be a pity if one died. The Li family was disgraced, but Lu Li was even more humiliated. The patriarchs didn't dare to say anything. Everyone in the Lu Union in Tianyue City let out a long sigh of relief. Those rich playboys were even more frightened. This incident had left a shadow in their hearts. It was likely that no one would dare to do evil in the future. It didn't matter if they were playboys. But if they dared to do evil, they would have to consider if Lu Li would find out. Lu Li had the courage to kill his own son. What were they to him? Emperor Mo took care of the aftermath. Gu Shi and the other two were killed on the spot. The three families had acquiesced to the execution as a warning to others. Therefore, Emperor Mo executed them in public to deter all the playboys of the Grim Reaper. He wanted them to know that playboys must have a bottom line, or else they would end up like this. Luin cut himself, and there was not a single piece of flesh left unharmed. He was a man of integrity. He didn't disgrace Lu Li. He didn't let out a cry. In the end, he was slapped to death by Emperor Yu. Emperor Yu was prepared. He took out a piece of artifact and sucked Lu and soul in. Later, he would rebuild the body. The Grim Reaper was rich now. Rebuilding the body was not a problem for them. Also, they could use better treasures to rebuild the body. In this way, Luin's aptitude would be better. Of course, it would affect his cultivation. He might not even be able to reach the Saint Emperor in this lifetime, let alone reach the complete realm. Those clans all received compensation, and it was a very heavy compensation. In total, there were 6 families. Emperor Mo gave the order in person to grant them a small city next to the Tianhua city. Next to the Tianhua city, they were under the watchful eyes of all the powerful figures, who would dare to seek revenge and make things difficult for them. The family masters and patriarchs of the small families were overjoyed. This was a blessing in disguise. The 6 families had the small city and the nearby land. In less than 100 years, they would be able to soar. They might not become major families, but at least they would be much more powerful than before. Emperor Mo gave each of the 6 families a token. If there was a crisis that could threaten the survival of their families, they could use the 6 tokens. Emperor Mo would send someone to deal with it for them in person. This was equivalent to 6 death exemption medallions and also 6 protective talismans. Many small families in the city were envious. They wished they could give their young ladies to Lu and the others to harm. The 6 families had gained a lot by using a small city and having a token. They all thanked Lu Ling profusely and left in delight. But the young ladies didn't leave. Lu Ling arranged for them to be taken away. Their reputation would be ruined if they came here. They would be subjected to all kinds of rumors when they went back to their families. Some of them might even commit suicide. Lu Ling was meticulous. She wanted to help Lu and the others to atone for their crimes, so she took them away. They were secretly taken to a manor of the Lu family. Lu Ling showed up in person, saying that she would take the young ladies as her protégés. She would give them many resources and train them to become top-level Grim Reapers. Those young ladies were not talented. Because of their status as females, they were not valued in their families. Their realms were low. Naturally, they were happy to hear that Lu Ling was the second most important person in the Lu Alliance, and that she would focus on training them. They were confused in the first place and didn't know what to do next. Now, they had found a way out. In the beginning, they hated Lu and the Lu family and Lu Li very much. What Lu Li did today made them see Lu Li and the Lu family in a new light. Lu Ling was a warrior of the great Emperor realm and the second most important person in the Lu Alliance. What else could they say when such a big shot was taking them as protégés? The farce came to an end in the middle of the night. It would take at least half a year for this matter to settle down. In a few days, the news would be spread across the entire Grim Reaper and the Chaotic Star region. By then, nobody could control whether there would be any negative repercussions or not. Chapter 36:20. In merely half a month, what happened to Lu and it spread across the Chaotic Star region, which was beyond the expectations of the Lu Alliance. Basically, the response was positive. Many people praised Lu Li for his love for his name, for his selflessness, and for being a righteous and honorable hero. The feedback from the interfaces of the God of Death was full of cheers and praises. Lu Ling and the others did some analysis. They believed that what Lu Li did could not diminish his prestige at all. On the contrary, his prestige among the people had reached its peak. Lu Li had become the real soul of the Grim Reaper, the uncrowned king. The reason was simple. Everywhere was a pyramid. The 10 giants were at the top of the pyramid, and the average civilians were at the bottom. They were at the bottom of the food chain. They were used to being bullied. Deep in their bones, they were in awe of power and powerlessness. Nobody wanted to subvert or fight back. In this world, the strong ruled. Victory could not be achieved by numbers. A warrior of the Sixth Tribulation could kill tens of millions of civilians, not to mention the emperors and saint emperors who were close to the consummate realm. Therefore, in this world, if you were weak, you had to put up with it. If the powerful wanted to kill you, you had to accept it. You had nowhere to appeal, and nobody could stand up for you. Even if you prayed to the gods day and night, the gods would not send down thunderbolts to kill the bad guys. Things like Luin and the others were happening everywhere in the heavenly chaotic star territory. It was not a big deal. When those nearby smaller races heard about it, they only expressed their anger. They didn't even dare to say anything in public. They were numb to it and used to it. Lu Li had done well. He could have just given some compensation to those smaller races, let alone punish Lu and the others. The civilians at the bottom would think Lu Li was a wise ruler, a good leader, and a benevolent king. For this, Luli was willing to kill his own son and cut off his own flesh. In the eyes of many of the lower-class citizens, this matter was simply unimaginable, like a fantasy story. When the news was confirmed, the civilians at the bottom were touched. They shed tears of gratitude. The civilians at the bottom were the easiest to be satisfied. As long as they could live, as long as they could be given hope, they would be satisfied and would support you. What happened to Luli this time made many people feel that he was a wise king, a king worthy of their support. If they didn't support such a king, who should they support? Were they supposed to support those experts who bullied and exploited them every day? Not only did the lower echelons react well, but even the upper echelons also applauded. None of the powerful warriors said anything bad about Luli. Even though the higher-ups were all rulers, they were not at the top. Luli was upholding the rules, which reassured them. As long as they did their work honestly, nothing unfair would happen as long as Luli was there. Of course, at the end of the day, it was because of Luli's power and status. If it was any other giant or an elder, there would definitely be hissing sounds of praise and criticism. When you had absolute power and authority, no one would dare to be dissatisfied with you or speak ill of you. That was the case in the Chaotic Star region. Luli had just returned from the rhinoceros ape race. None of the major races dared to provoke Luli. After this incident, many patriarchs and family patriarchs praised Luli in public and said all kinds of good things about him. Secretly, many powerful warriors spoke ill of Luli, saying that he was putting on a show, that he was cold-blooded, that he was a lunatic. When Luli came back, he went back to his castle. He activated the divine glyphs and refused to see anyone. He didn't care about what people were saying. He needed to heal and to reflect on himself. Over the years, Lewin had lacked love and care. He had not fulfilled his responsibilities as a father. He planned to spend some time to train Lu, and after he rebuilt his body, Jiang Qiling and the other twins were worried. Lewin had shown some signs years ago, but they never told Luli. They had been trying their best to cover for Lewin. They would teach Lewin, but he was an adult now. He wouldn't listen to them. A loving mother could spoil a child. The god of death had many treasures to rebuild the body. 2 months later, Emperor Feather would help Lewin rebuild his body. He himself had done it once and was experienced. After more than a month, a reborn Lewin appeared. He looked just like the old Lewin, but he didn't have a realm. He had to start all over again. This time, the treasures used were top-notch. Lewin's body was strong enough to be comparable to a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation. This was a blessing in disguise. Luli had told him that after Lewin's body was rebuilt, he must be locked up in the Valley of Condemnation so that he could reflect on himself. Therefore, Emperor of Feather only told Jiang Qiling and the other twins to come and meet him before he took Lu into the Valley of Condemnation. The Valley of Condemnation was a place to imprison prisoners. The natural gravity here was strong. Prisoners here had to bear the pressure of gravity at all times. Naturally, they would not have an easy life. Lewin was not powerful enough. Fortunately, his body was strong enough to withstand the gravity in the Valley of Condemnation. That being said, it wasn't easy. Lewin was locked up in a prison on a cliff in the Valley of Condemnation. Emperor of Feather brought him there in person. When Lewin was locked up, Emperor of Feather stood outside and threw in an interspatial ring. Emperor of Feather solemnly said, "Lewin, you can be reborn because your father gave you the flesh on his arm. Now that you are reborn, forget the past and be a new man. Let me tell you this, as your father's son, it doesn't matter whether you are powerful or not. No matter how powerful you are, you cannot be more powerful than your father. None of us can, let alone you. If you want to be a good son to your father and be respected, then you must be a good man with dignity." Lewin was suppressed by the gravity. Lying on the ground, he found it hard to breathe. He looked up and asked, "Grandpa, how can I be a good man?" Sincerity, courage, kindness, perseverance, self-confidence, responsibility, perseverance, and so on. Your father has many good qualities that you should learn from. Emperor of Feather added after some thoughts. The simplest example is that you are in a difficult situation, but you don't want to give up. Instead, You are courageous and energetic. You can start from nothing, stand up again, cultivate again in a short time, and impress everyone. That is a success. Lewin thought for a while and nodded. Thank you, Grandpa you. I understand now. I was a disgrace to my father. Now that I am reborn, I will stand up again and wash away this shame. You are worth teaching. Emperor of Feather nodded in satisfaction. He thought for a while and advised again, how far a person can go has a lot to do with talent, diligence, and personality. However, the world has actually forgotten one thing, and that is fate. Whether a person can stand at the peak of the martial Tao, half of it depends on talent, diligence, personality, and so on. The other half depends on fate. Your father is a person with great fate. You don't have to think about surpassing your father. We have never thought about surpassing him. A person with great fate like him is hard to find, even one in a billion people. It is the same for all the great perfection realm martial artists. Every one of them is a person with great fate. Fate is something that should not be forced. If it is yours, it will not run away. If it is not yours, then you have to accept your fate. Don't compare yourself with others. Just be yourself, and that is enough. Chapter 36:21. Emperor of Feather gave Lewin many materials and resources. Lewin paid no more attention to them and focused on cultivation. Even though he had no cultivation, he could cultivate fast. In just 1 month, he was ready for the heavenly tribulation. Emperor of Feather had told him that if Lewin wanted to take the heavenly tribulation, he should be let out. The manager here was a warrior on Lu Li's side. Lewin could go out to take the heavenly tribulation and then come back to cultivate. Lewin's mind was free, and the previous heavenly tribulations and cultivation were too easy. In 1 year, he had taken 4 heavenly tribulations and was about to reach the 5th tribulation. After his rebirth, Lewin's mind was much steadier. He seemed to have grown up. His body was reconstructed with precious materials. His talent was dozens of times better than before, and he could cultivate faster. A month later, Lewin began the 5th heavenly tribulation. This time, he could not afford to be careless. He asked permission to go to the heavenly tribulation platform at the Heaven Realm. The Patriarch of the Valley of Inquisition went with Lewin in person, not because he was afraid that Lewin would run away, but to protect him. Boom, boom, boom. Lewin had already passed the 5th heavenly tribulation. Jiang Qiling and the others helped him last time, but his foundation was stable. Therefore, Lewin's heavenly tribulation went smoothly. He passed the 5th heavenly tribulation and returned to the 5th tribulation. After the heavenly tribulation, Lewin cried into the sky. He let out all the anger he had been suppressing over the years. He flew down to the heavenly tribulation platform. He looked at the crowd, trying to find the Patriarch of the Valley of Inquisition. All of a sudden, he was surprised because he saw a familiar figure. Father. Lewin flew down quickly and dropped to one knee in front of Lu Li. Lu Li nodded and said, "Good. You have passed the 5th heavenly tribulation in a year. Good progress." Lewin was excited to be praised by Lu Li. His eyes reddened and he said, my son, it's okay. Say no more." Lu Li patted Lewin's shoulder and said, "It was my fault. Let bygones be bygones. From now on, you must be a good man. You don't have to go to the Valley of Inquisition. Go to the Heaven Fire region. You will be in charge of that region. You will be a deputy patriarch of the Lu Alliance. Cultivate well, work hard, and visit your mothers when you have time. Combat power is important, but being a person is even more important. Do you understand? Manage an interface? Vice Elder?" Lewin was surprised. He didn't expect that Lu Li would give him such an important task. Under normal circumstances, managing the interface required at least the position of an elder who was very prestigious and experienced in the Lu Alliance. Moreover, their combat strength could not be too weak. He thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Father, your son has just made a big mistake. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for me to immediately take on such a heavy responsibility, right? Many people will gossip about Lu Ming and Grim Reaper. Forget the past and fear the future. Luli said solemnly. You have to remember these words. You have done something wrong. If you want to gain everyone's approval, then you have to work harder to be a good person and do good deeds. Bit by bit, you have to wash away the stains on you so that everyone will recognize and accept you. In this life, one should not care too much about other people's opinions. It was enough to be oneself. If you can't even accept other people's ridicule, then what qualifications do you have to obtain other people's respect? To be able to do what ordinary people can't, that's what a hero is. Lewin nodded, bowed, and said, Thank you, Father. I will not let you down. Get up. Luli waved his hand. Then he flew up with Lu into the teleportation formation. On their way, he said, Let's go back to the Lu mansion. Your mothers miss you. But Lewin was hesitating. He said with shame, Father, you go back first? I can sneak back later. Have you forgotten what I said before? Luli threw him a glance and said, If you don't even have the courage to go back with me, how can you bear the gossip? Lewin said with shame, I am not afraid of myself. I am afraid that it will affect your reputation. Father. Ha. Luli smiled lightly and said, I never care about my reputation. I just want to be myself. If my reputation is affected because of this, then it means that my reputation is useless. Luli said nothing more. Lewin stopped talking as well. He looked at Luli out of the corner of his eye, feeling ashamed. Because of him, Luli had to cut his own flesh to make amends. Now, Luli was going back with him, which would affect Luan's reputation. As a son, Lewin could not help at all. Instead, he was bringing trouble to Luli. Soon, they were teleported back to the Tianhua city. When they appeared at the teleportation formation at the plaza, many people in the city were looking at them with psychic power. Those people were shocked, and some were different. Luli ignored them completely. He walked side by side with Lu and toward the Lu mansion. Jiang Qiling and the others of the Lu mansion came out to greet them. They stood at the gate to greet them as if they were welcoming a hero, not a criminal who had just been released from prison. Luan's eyes were wet. He dropped to his knees and kowtowed to Lu Zhenyang, Lu Renwang, and Jiang Qiling. He choked with sobs, trying to say something, but could not. Go in. Luli waved his hand. Jiang Qiling and the others helped Lewin in. The family gathered together and had a meal. People in the city were talking about it. Of course, some people were speaking ill of Luli and Lewin. Just as Luli said, his reputation was not given by others. He earned it himself. Naturally, this matter would not affect them. Luli was actually standing up for Lewin. He was telling all the warriors of the Grim Reaper that Lewin's matter was in the past. If anyone dared to talk about the past again, they would have to consider if Luli would be angry. It was only a year since Luli was standing up for Lewin. Inevitably, he would be criticized. But for Lewin, Luli believed it was worth it. He had been so irresponsible to Lewin. Therefore, he had to make it up to Lu and at the cost of his own reputation. With Lewin's support, Lewin's days would be better. At least, no warriors of the Grim Reaper dared to mock him in public. Luli was ready to cultivate for a while now that Lewin's matter had come to an end. He was still young. He could not wait for his death to come. He had to find a way to improve his abilities and see if he could go further. More importantly, he was worried. He felt it would be difficult for Little White to reach the consummate realm. Little White was too young, and its foundation was not stable. It would be difficult for it to reach the consummate realm in such a short time. If Little White could not make the breakthrough, it would become a target for all. Countless families and powerful warriors from the immortal region would hunt him down. Should he help or not? If he did, how could he help? He could not do it with his current abilities. The Traceless Tao was not omnipotent. The master of the Traceless Sword was from the immortal region. He was killed as well. Luli wanted to cultivate in the next few thousand years. He might not reach the consummate realm, but he could at least improve his abilities to cope with the chaos in the immortal region. P.S. I'm not in a good state. I'm trying to adjust. Let's just see. Chapter 36:22. Spring went and spring came. Flowers bloomed and wilted. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 30 years had passed. The heavenly chaotic star field had been peaceful for decades. warriors from other realms thought they had gone the wrong way. This place was countless times more stable than the other star regions. The 12 sovereigns had established a strategy to recuperate and build up strength, and they controlled the entire star region situation. Aside from the occasional skirmish, there are few large-scale battles. The Grim Reaper had been very stable all these years, and there had been no major incidents. It was just that some hedonistic young masters would occasionally cause a little trouble, which was nothing much. Nowadays, those hedonistic young masters had also learned their lesson. They played low-key and went to the small cities of their own clans to play. Even if something happened, they could still suppress it. What happened to Lu and Back then had made them restrain themselves. They did not dare to act recklessly. At most, they would threaten and tempt him. In the past few years, the Grim Reaper had gained another 5 experts who were infinitely close to becoming paragons. Their overall strength was ranked 7th among the 12 juggernauts. Of course, this was just a superficial ranking. As a matter of fact, none of the other overlords dared to provoke the Grim Reaper because the Grim Reaper had Luli. Luli had been keeping a low profile for the past 30 years. There was almost no news about him. He would only occasionally come out to let the world know that he was still around. He spent the rest of his time in seclusion, thinking of ways to improve his combat strength. Luli cultivated for 30 years and consumed many elixirs. His body and soul were strengthened. He studied several laws on the steel. Apart from that, he gained nothing. Luli was only an early Saint King. He had comprehended a few laws, but did not increase his overall battle prowess by much. His main battle prowess came from external objects, such as flames, divine liquid of destruction, spirit array techniques, and the frost energy he obtained later on. If he comprehended the laws, the power would be too weak, not as strong as his original methods. Luli wasn't in a rush, because there was no point in rushing. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Emperor of Yu and the others were already at the same level of battle prowess as they were now. Over the past tens of thousands of years, their progress had been very slow. Could it be that they didn't want to live anymore? At Lu Li's age, it was already incredible that he had achieved what he had. It was hard to find one in 10,000 years. What else could Lu Li be dissatisfied with? Lu Li had the Master God's map that the Ice Empress had obtained. He had named it himself. With this Master God's map, he didn't need to leave his house to know what was going on in the world. Apart from the realms of the fourth heaven and above, he could explore all the realms of the great world. Little White had yet to return, and no one knew which mystic realm it had gone to for seclusion. These secret realms were not on the map, so Lu Li could not find them. The king of the eastern region was still alive, and the eastern region was peaceful, so Lu Li had nothing to worry about. Over the years, Lu Li felt like he had nothing to do. The lack of progress in his cultivation made him dispirited. The rest of the Lu alliance was fine, and the Grim Reaper was also fine. He didn't need to care at all. Apart from occasionally accompanying his wife, giving pointers to his juniors and Lu and patrolling the realms controlled by the Lu alliance, and visiting other sovereigns, he had nothing else to do. In the past few years, he had even visited the Grim Reaper's arcane realms and explored all the places that were beneficial for cultivation. However, it was not very meaningful. He was standing too high, and these secret realms were not particularly helpful to him. In the past 30 years, Lu Meng's overall strength had increased quite a bit. There were already more than 10 Emperor-level experts and close to 10,000 Sixth Tribulation experts. What was worth mentioning was that Lu had broken through to Disaster 6. Disaster 6 in the Chaotic Sky Star field was barely considered a character, so it was not too embarrassing. Over the years, Lu Meng had sent back a portion of her disciples and brought back tens of thousands of elites from the Middle King realms. This was the strategy formulated by the leaders of Lu Meng. The elites from the Middle King realms would stay and cultivate for a while. If they were slow, they would be sent back. In this way, resources would not be wasted, and the overall strength of the Middle King realms could be enhanced, creating a virtuous cycle. Otherwise, when everyone was outside and unwilling to go back, some of the promising ones from the Middle King realms would run away. Lu Li basically didn't care about the affairs of his faction. Lu Ling and the 3 core great patriarchs were in charge. Lu Ling and the three great patriarchs made the decisions together. Lu Li had set a principle. Interests could be fought over, but not too much. Otherwise, the other factions would be dissatisfied and there would be internal strife. With nothing to do, Lu Li decided to leave the chaotic sky region and return to the universe region. He didn't want to have fun. He wanted to go to the Ice River Valley. There were two reasons for going to the Ice River Valley. First, Blood Fairy had been studying for decades and had made great progress in terms of divine glyphs. She wanted to go to the Ice River Valley to continue studying and to see if she was right. She also wanted to find a way to crack some of the divine glyphs. Another reason was that Lu Li wanted to explore the Ice Harem Palace. There might be an almighty being there. There must be many treasures in the palace. The treasures were not important. What Lu Li wanted was to learn something from the palace. If there were powerful Tao patterns left in the palace and Lu Li could study them, his abilities would soar. Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiuxue were satisfied that Lu Li could stay at home for decades. Therefore, when Lu Li said he wanted to go out for at least decades, they didn't say anything. They just told Lu Li to be careful and come back as soon as possible. This time, Lu Li planned to leave in secret. He wouldn't tell anyone apart from his family. Lu Ling could crush a jade talisman, and he could communicate with her at once. He could let Lu Ling pass on his orders. If there was an emergency, he could come back in half a year at the top of his speed. The Grim Reaper was strong. Even if there were invaders, he should be able to survive for half a year. Even if something were to happen to the Grim Reaper, Lu Li would still be a deterrent. Who would dare to touch the Grim Reaper as long as he was alive? After he told his family, Lu Li gathered several core great patriarchs and gave them some instructions. He said he had learned something recently and he was going to cultivate for dozens of years. He asked them to go to Lu Ling if they needed help. If they couldn't handle it, they could ask Lu Ling to go to him. Lu Li didn't usually manage things. It was Lu Ling who made the decisions. Therefore, it didn't make any difference whether he gave them instructions or not. The great patriarchs told Lu Li to focus on cultivation and that they would report to Lu Ling and deal with it together. Lu Li talked to Sovereign Mo, Sovereign E, and Sovereign U for a while. The two of them didn't mind. They would cultivate for dozens of years at a time. Usually, nothing serious would happen. If something did happen, they could just come out. The three of them told Lu Li to focus on cultivation, and they wouldn't disturb him in general. Now that the Grim Reaper was fine, the other leaders were wondering if they should cultivate to reach the consummate realm as well. Emperor Li had been cultivating recently, trying to reach the consummate realm as well. With Lu Li as the leader, the Grim Reaper had to take the last step to change the situation. Anyone that could reach the consummate realm would be the supreme ruler of the Grim Reaper. All the other leaders would have to kneel and surrender. 5 days later, Lu Li left. He used the traceless path to sneak away. The Tianyue city was filled with top-level scouts. It was impossible for him to leave without being noticed. After hiding for half a month, Lu Li left the territory of the Grim Reaper. He used the art of transfiguration and changed his appearance. Then, he took a battleship and flew out of the universe. Chapter 36-23. After more than half a year, Lu Li arrived at the region of universe. He entered the ancient rhinoceros realm with ease and then went to the Ice River Valley quietly. Decades had passed. The rhinoceros ape race was not wiped out. On the contrary, because of Lu Li's announcement, many major races thought that the leader of the rhinoceros ape race was on a rampage again. For the time being, no other races dared to attack the rhinoceros ape race. The Meng race was in a worse state. The Meng race had been conquered. Most of the Meng race were wiped out. Only a small number of powerful warriors escaped back to their ancestral land. Of course, they had relocated many elites and resources back. They still had a chance to rise again. Even if they could, it would take at least 10,000 years. The Meng race was conquered. It had a large territory, and it was attacked by more than a dozen major races. Unlike the Heaven Slayer Union, these races were divided into 3 different alliances. If they did not reach an agreement before the war, the interests would not be evenly divided. Behind these 3 alliances stood 3 super clans, so a chaotic war broke out. What was more, the territories were unclaimed. The other major races joined in the fight as well. Whoever could take over the territories could become the new overlord. Which major race would not be tempted? Over the past decades, the Meng race's territories had become more and more lively. There was no stopping. This was why the rhinoceros ape race could survive. Otherwise, they would have been targeted by the other major races. Luli asked around, but did not pay much attention. He was against the rhinoceros ape race, mainly because of the endless ruins of divinity. He did not hate the rhinoceros ape race too much. Decades ago, he extorted some money from them, and the rhinoceros ape race gave him the resources. Luli did not go after the rhinoceros ape race. The Ice River Valley was redeveloped. After all, this was a land of treasured resources. Many warriors died here, but soon the area was rebuilt. The rhinoceros ape race sent a warrior close to the consummate realm to guard here. The warrior had the divine glyphs activated all the time. Blood Fairy had studied the divine glyphs in the Ice Queen Palace. She was skilled in divine glyphs. She made a hole for Lu Li, and he snuck in quietly. He released the traceless way and swaggered into the depths of the Ice River Valley. After Lu Li left last time, the cold air in the cave became horrifying again. Therefore, no warrior dared to enter the cave again. Lu Li went to the deepest part of the pond. The white liquid appeared again. Lu Li absorbed the liquid and entered the strange space inside. Seeing the ice harem again, Lu Li was still shocked. The palace was so majestic that it made people feel small. Blood Fairy, go ahead. If you find anything, inform me immediately. Lu Li waved his hand. On second thought, he asked Blood Fairy to show him to the study. He had no idea how to cultivate at the moment, so he might as well look at that calligraphy. The last time he stood in front of the book, 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye. This way he could pass the time. Moreover, there was another benefit to reading the calligraphy, which was that his soul would naturally grow. Last time, he had increased by several times. This was much faster than refining the divine medicine. Not only could he kill time, but he could also quickly increase his soul. Where else could he find such a good thing? In any case, Blood Fairy would wake him up if she found anything, and he would just have to force his way out. Back in the study, Lu Li told Blood Fairy to study on her own. He walked around the room and then fixed his eyes on that piece of calligraphy. His eyes became misty again. The world in front of him disappeared and turned into chaos. Then, thunderbolts appeared. Heaven and earth were separated. Everything was born. The world changed into mulberry fields. Living beings emerged. As he read on, Lu Li felt something was off. He could see the later stage. The world was in a constant state of war. He could feel many warriors at the absolute completion realm. According to his memory, this should be the end. Why hadn't Blood Fairy sent him a message? It had been 20 years since she read it. A moment later, a huge hand appeared in the sky and smashed down. The entire world began to collapse. None of the living beings, including those at the absolute completion realm, could escape from the twisting force of space caused by the collapse of the world. All the living beings were torn apart. Everything turned into nothingness and then chaos, forming a reincarnation cycle. Gradually, Lu Li came back to his senses. He felt he was back in the study. After a moment of surprise, he sent a message to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy, where are you? Come out. Whoosh! A moment later, Blood Fairy came from the distance and said, Master, you are finally awake. Finally again? Another 20 years have passed? Lu Li was speechless. Why didn't you wake me up? Didn't I tell you before? If you find anything, let me know at once. Master, it is not my fault, Blood Fairy said, feeling wronged. First of all, I did not find anything. Second, I could not wake you up. I tried twice, but you did not respond. There was nothing I could do. Lu Li was taken aback again. Then he checked his soul. His soul was indeed strengthened. The coldness in the realm of magic had increased as well. It had been 20 years. 20 years for a show. Time flew by. Fortunately, his soul had improved a lot, so it was not a loss. Lu Li's soul was horrifying. He had many adventures, and his soul had been improved to an incredible level. His soul was as strong as a warrior that was close to the complete immortal realm. It was impossible to grow 5 or 6 times stronger in 20 years just by consuming elixirs. All right. Luli waved his hand and told Blood Fairy to wait. He took out the map and began to check the Skyrise city first. He checked carefully and communicated with Lu Ling to make sure that nothing serious had happened. Lu Ling was relieved as well. It had been 20 years since Lu Li had sent any message. She was worried. Now that he had sent back a message, everything was fine. Lu Li checked other places, including the Immortal region. Still, Little White did not return to the city of Mystic Armor. He could not sense Little White at the East King City. Lu Li asked Lord Yu about their conversation. He learned that Little White had been cultivating in a secret realm and would not come out anytime soon. It might be hundreds of years later. Putting away the map, Lu Li said to Blood Fairy, "Didn't you say that you have learned many divine glyphs? Why haven't you found anything after 20 years? Can't you crack the divine glyphs of the Ice Harem?" "I have done it in many places," Blood Fairy explained, "but many of the side halls have been destroyed. There is nothing but some broken pieces of treasures. Right now, there are only 3 complete halls that hadn't been breached. The divine inscriptions here were simply too powerful. Also, I have found a path in the main hall. I have found the source of the coldness. Unfortunately, the source is not some treasures. I think it is a statue of a lady." "A statue of a lady?" Lu Li was excited. "Show me the way. I want to see the statue. It might be the statue of the Ice Queen." Chapter 36-24. Naturally, Blood Fairy could not solve all the glyphs in the main hall. There were too many of them. Blood Fairy had only found a weak spot and opened up a path for Lu Li to go through safely. Lu Li arrived at the main hall. The place was still shrouded in mist. In the mist, there was a surge of horrifying energy. Lu Li felt that he would be destroyed at the slightest touch. Blood Fairy was leading the way. Lu Li noticed that the mist on the left side was thinner. There was a tunnel that looked like a dog hole. Lu Li took a look and asked, "Are you asking me to climb in?" "I don't have a choice, Master. Sorry for the inconvenience." Blood Fairy said, "The glyphs here are too strong. It will take me too long to solve them all. There are no outsiders here. Just climb in. I promise you that you will be safe." "All right." Lu Li touched his nose in embarrassment. He followed Blood Fairy and climbed in. He was careful not to make a wrong step. This place was too dangerous. One wrong step, and he would be smashed to pieces. Lu Li crawled in through the hole that Blood Fairy made. It was all misty except for a winding path that was free of mist. Clearly, Blood Fairy had found a weak spot to crack open. Otherwise, this tunnel would not exist. After climbing for thousands of feet, the mist in front of him finally faded away. Lu Li stood up slowly. In the end, he found himself in an open ground and saw the statue. The moment he saw the statue, Lu Li trembled. He thought he had seen a ghost. He could not tell what the statue was made of. It was like a real person, vivid and lifelike. If it were not for the fact that there was no sign of life, Lu Li would have thought it was a real person. But that was not the point. The point was that the statue looked like an old friend of Lu Li's, the Asmodean. In Lu Li's life, the Asmodean was a very important woman. She could be described as a benefactor. Lu Li respected and admired the Asmodean. To him, the Asmodean enjoyed a high status. Even with his current abilities, Lu Li felt that he was nothing in front of the Asmodean. He once went to the second heaven to look for the Asmodean. Later, he went to the third heaven and found the immortal of sin. Unfortunately, he did not find the Asmodean. After so many years, he had almost forgotten about this woman. Now that he suddenly saw a statue that looked very much like the great Demon King, how could he not be shocked? The Ice Empress was a main god-level expert. The great Demon King had always been very mysterious. Now, there was a statue of the great Demon King in the Ice Empress Palace. This shocked Lu Li to the core. No, Lu Li took a closer look and murmured with a frown. Yes and no. There's a mole on the left side of the nose. I remember that the great Demon King doesn't have a mole. Furthermore, there's a slight difference in their looks, and their aura is also very different. Lu Li was confused. At first glance, the statue looked like a demon king, but upon closer inspection, it didn't. Especially in terms of charm, the difference was too great. The statue's body was ice cold, and its eyes were like ice. It was like a wild beast without any human emotions. It was just a statue. The charm of the statue didn't seem real. But somehow, Luli had a feeling this statue wasn't the Demon King. The source of the cold air was from the statue. The statue was emitting a thick cold air that kept surging out. The cold air around here was 10 times thicker than in other places. Luli didn't mind the cold air. After all, the Dharma realm would continue to absorb it. He stared at the statue, trying to make sure if this was the great Demon King. I don't think so. But isn't this too similar? Is she a sister of the great Demon King? Luli murmured. To him, the great Demon King had always been a mystery. When she first appeared, it was a mystery. Nobody knew where she came from. All they knew was that she was horrifying and could defeat the entire second heaven. At first, Luli thought she was only at the second heaven. Little did he know that she was the benefactor of Immortal Tianzue. Immortal Tianzue was a saint emperor. The great Demon King was at least a warrior close to the consummate realm. Now, Luli believed that the great Demon King was not a warrior close to the consummate realm. She was at least at the consummate realm. This woman was so mysterious. She disappeared all of a sudden and never showed up again. She had a little princess with her. The little princess was very naughty. Luli remembered that the little princess used to tease him. If it weren't for the statue, Luli would have forgotten about this mysterious woman. Given the great Demon King's power, she must have a long life. She couldn't have died. She never appeared in a Middle King realm again. Could she be in the 8 galaxies? Or the Immortal region? Also, why did the great Demon King send her to the Dragon Rebel clan? Also, the great Demon King's prophecy that the King realms would face a calamity and asked Immortal Tianzue to wait for him. All these questions made Luli feel that the great Demon King was unfathomable. Besides, she was so similar to the statue. Luli even wondered if she was a sister of the Ice Empress. This statue must be the statue of the Ice Empress. If the great Demon King and the Ice Empress were sisters, then the great Demon King was also a powerful warrior of the main immortal realm? I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Luli shook his head. He felt there was a pair of invisible hands behind him. Maybe he was too weak to get in touch. Could it be that he had to reach the consummate realm to be qualified? But how long would it take for him to reach the consummate realm? He even felt he had no hope. Never mind. Luli thought about it for a while, but could not find a clue. He put aside and asked, Blood Fairy, have you checked the statue? Are there any divine glyphs? How can there be such a horrifying cold air? I have not checked. Blood Fairy replied, Master, do not touch the statue. I have a feeling that the statue will turn into dust at once. Do not get too close. Just watch from a distance. Really? Luli was curious. He moved closer to the statue. When he was 100 feet away from the statue, Luli sensed danger. If he were to go any closer, he could die a horrible death. He did not dare to go any closer. He just stood there and watched. Luli could not tell how the statue was made. It looked no different from a real person. Even the pores on the skin could be seen. The skin was as red as blood, and the hair was like a waterfall. The statue was wearing a sky blue dress, swaying gracefully. Judging from the statue, the Ice Empress was a perfect woman, the darling of heaven. There was no flaw. After a while, Luli used psychic power to check. Soon, he realized something. His psychic power could not go into the statue. He felt there was an invisible force that was blocking his psychic power. Luli thought about it. He sat down with his legs crossed and used a trace of Tao to check. Similarly, he could not see inside the statue. He felt there was a thin layer of light covering the statue. He could not see inside. This is not a real person. Luli was sure of one thing. Vivid as the statue was, it was different from a real person. It was not a living thing, not even a corpse. The cold air is coming from the abdomen of the statue. Luli sensed something else. He could vaguely tell that there seemed to be a black hole in the abdomen of the statue, and cold air was coming out. It was as if the abdomen of the statue was connected to another world. Chapter 36:25. The more Luli tried to sense it, the more he felt there was something more to the statue. There seemed to be a strange and mysterious Taoist rhythm in the statue, which was very attractive. There seemed to be a mysterious force that was attracting Luli to explore. Luli used a trace of Taoist law to sense it. He locked on to the blurry black hole in the statue. Gradually, he felt the world in front of him lit up. He noticed that the scenery around him had changed. He had come to a vast land, a land of ice and snow. Luli could not see the surroundings clearly. All he could see was a vast land surrounded by wind and snow. There was nothing here except for glaciers, a world of ice and snow. Luli took a look. Was this the source of the cold air? A world of ice and snow. This world was so cold that Luli's senses were numb. He could not move and could only sense the situation around him. What he could sense was an ice field. Apart from ice and snow, there was nothing else. But Luli sensed a very clear trace of law of ice and snow in this world. Where does the ice and snow come from? Luli was confused. Why was there ice and snow in this world? Why was the ice and snow so cold? Why was the fire so hot? What was the nature of ice and snow? How was the ice and snow formed? Luli's mind was filled with questions. He didn't even have to think about them. Luli fell into deep thought as well. What was the ice and snow? What was the origin of ice and snow? What was the source of ice and snow? Ice is formed by water. The origin of ice and snow is water? Luli began to think. Water could turn into ice, and when ice melted, it would turn into water. Therefore, the origin of ice was water. But water did not have the property of ice. When ice was not melted, it had nothing to do with water. Ice should be the combination of water and some kind of energy. After half a day, Luli came to a conclusion. Water was water, not ice. The reason why water could turn into ice and snow was that it was combined with some kind of energy. When ice came into contact with fire, that was heat, it would turn back into water. Was it because the heat neutralized the energy and dissolved it? What is this kind of energy? Luli continued to think. After several days, he came to a conclusion. Water could turn into ice because of cold energy. If there was heat, then there must be cold energy. The question was, where did the cold energy come from? Where did the heat energy come from? The more Luli thought, the more questions he had. He seemed to be pursuing the essence of the world. He was in deep thought. He forgot about his current situation, forgot where he was, forgot about this statue, and only wanted to investigate the essence and deduce the truth. At that moment, images appeared in his mind. Those were the images that he had seen in the study. He recalled the origins of that chaos world, its birth, development, and destruction. His heart was inexplicably moved. Perhaps the things in that image could help him deduce these truths. He did not know. What was to be useful? What he wanted to do now was to keep deducing until he found the truth. Blood Fairy ignored him and continued to comprehend the divine inscriptions. Time flew by. Luli had no concept of time when he was in the process of deduction. Soon, another 20 years had passed. Luli had not woken up yet. During the 20 years, he did not sleep for even a moment. He had been in silence. Blood Fairy had waited for 20 years. Luli had not woken up. He did not sleep for a moment. He had been in silence. This time, Luli woke up. He opened his eyes. The world of ice and snow was gone. He saw the statue in front of him. He shook his head in confusion and asked, Blood Fairy, why are you talking to me? Did you find something? Master, you have been cultivating for another 20 years. Blood Fairy reminded him. Luli was surprised. He did not feel that much time had passed. It was as if he had been cultivating for several months. He did not feel tired. He was in a good state of mind. Luli checked himself. To his surprise, his soul had grown several times stronger. This is strange. Luli was taken aback. The images and the records could increase his soul. Now, the world of ice and snow and the statue could increase his soul quietly. This Ice Queen Palace was strange. He had not finished 20 years. There were still many key points that he had not figured out. Time had passed so quickly. After a moment of rest, Luli took out the map to contact Lu Ling. Luli stopped using psychic power after making sure that everything was fine and that Lu Ling had taken care of the trivial matters. He was a little hesitant. He felt that there was not much point in deducing this. What could he do even if he deduced it? Even if he could learn a law of ice and snow, it would not improve his abilities. Luli had seen many laws of ice and snow. He had fought many warriors that were close to the complete realm. Some of them knew laws of ice and snow. Some laws of ice and snow were powerful, such as freezing a space or restraining the speed of enemies. As far as Luli was concerned, laws of ice and snow were basically auxiliary laws, not offensive ones. For the real, powerful warriors, such laws were not meaningful. Before one could freeze the space, the enemy would have run away. What was more, even if one could slow down the enemy could still be killed if the enemy was stronger. If the enemy was weaker, then what was the point of freezing the enemy? Just kill the enemy. Another thing was that Lu Li's region of Dharma was filled with cold air that had been condensed by the region of Dharma. How horrifying was the cold air? Lu Li himself did not know. He was sure that warriors close to the complete realm would not be able to stand it. If Lu Li released a bit of cold air, the warrior would be turned into an ice sculpture in an instant. Therefore, Lu Li felt learning laws of ice and snow was of little value. It would be a waste to abandon it. He had nothing else to do here. After some thoughts, Lu Li asked Blood Fairy, "Have you learned anything in the past 20 years?" "Yes, I have." Blood Fairy replied, "Between now and before I entered the palace of Ice Queen, my abilities in divine inscriptions have improved by more than 50 times. If I keep studying, I can improve by 100 times. 100 times? Lu Li was shocked. Blood Fairy's knowledge of divine inscriptions was already impressive. How horrifying would it be if she could improve by 100 times? Lu Li had an idea. Blood Fairy, if you can improve by 100 times, are you confident that you can set up divine inscriptions to trap or even kill a complete Rel warrior? Well, Blood Fairy thought about it. After a while, she said, "I don't know because I don't know how strong a complete realm warrior is. But if I can set up divine inscriptions now, I can kill warriors close to the complete realm. No matter how many come, they will all die." That powerful. Blood Fairy never boasted. Lu Li waved his hand. "Okay, don't worry about the rest. Go and study divine inscriptions. Just wake me up once every 20 years. I have nothing to do when I go back. I will stay here with you." Chapter 36-26. Blood Fairy continued to study divine glyphs, while Lu Li had nothing to do other than study the law of ice and snow. The law of ice and snow did not seem to be of much use. That being said, it was the law contained in the statue of Ice Queen. Lu Li wanted to give it a try. What if it turned out to be powerful? Ice Queen was a warrior at the ultimate level. Once he was in closed-door cultivation, he would lose track of time. In less than 20 years, Blood Fairy would wake him up. If something happened to the god of death, Lu Ling would crush the jade talisman and he would know. He kept on thinking. Time flew by quietly. Bang! 16 years later, the jade talisman on Lu Li's waist suddenly cracked. Normally, Lu Li would be able to sense it, but maybe he was in closed-door cultivation or something. Anyways, nothing happened. Blood Fairy was not nearby. She could not sense anything. Bang! Another year passed. Another jade talisman cracked. This time, Lu Li still did not respond. But Blood Fairy had come back. She sensed the jade talisman and sent a message to Lu Li at once. However, last time, Lu Li woke up immediately. This time, he did not respond. Something is wrong. Blood Fairy was as intelligent as a human being. She just did not have human emotions. She knew that when the jade talisman cracked, something must have happened to the god of death. Moreover, it was broken into 2 pieces. This meant that something big had happened to the Grim Reaper. Lu Li cannot wake up. He must be in closed-door cultivation. What if he only woke up after decades? Blood Fairy had to keep on talking. Half a year later, Lu Li suddenly woke up. He opened his eyes and said, "Blood Fairy, it has been 20 years? Why are you in such a hurry? What is it?" "I am fine." Blood Fairy was speechless. Two pieces of the jade talisman on your waist are broken. Don't you feel anything? Ah, Luli was taken aback. He took out the map at once and used psychic power to check on the Skyleap City. He looked around. Nothing was out of the ordinary in the Skyleap City. The civilians were not panicking. He was confused. He used psychic power to check the Lu mansion. Soon, he found Lu Ling. What is it? Lu Ling was taken aback. She breathed in relief when she heard that it was Lu Li. Lu Li, what have you been doing for the past 1 year? I crushed the jade talisman, but you didn't send me a message. I thought something happened to you. I'm fine, Lu Li said with embarrassment. I have been cultivating. I have had some enlightenment recently, so I didn't notice. What happened? The Gang tribe and the Tong tribe are at war. Lu Ling explained solemnly. The war started 1.5 years ago. At that time, I crushed the first jade talisman. The 9 powerful warriors asked you what to do. You didn't answer me, so I let the 9 magnates decide for themselves. Half a year ago, I crushed the second jade talisman because Emperor Li represented the Grim Reaper and was humiliated. Emperor Li is furious and wants to go to war. Now Emperor Mo has set off with a group of Grand Supreme Elders. What? Lu Li was taken aback. He said at once, "Tell me the details." Lu Ling reported the details of the situation to Lu Li and added her own analysis. Lu Li finally understood the cause and effect after she talked for an hour. According to Lu Ling, the war between the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe was not a sudden event. It was an inevitable outcome. It had been over 100 years since the last war in the Chaotic Star region. The Chaotic Star region had been resting and building up strength for over 100 years. The 12 masters had been focusing on training powerful warriors, and there was no war in the Chaotic Star region. Therefore, the number of powerful warriors among the 12 masters had increased. There were more warriors that were infinitely close to the complete completion of the Chaotic Star region. There were more Saint Kings and many more at the Great Emperor realm. The situation in the Chaotic Star region was stabilized. The status of the 12 masters was unshakable. The general trend of the world would be united after a long period of separation. After a long period of stability, there would be chaos sooner or later. This was the law of history. People could never be satisfied. As time went by, conflicts would intensify. The Gang tribe and the Tong tribe had never been on good terms. When the 12 masters were just established, young masters of the 2 races once fought. A young master of the immediate Gang tribe was killed. That young master of the immediate Tong tribe was sentenced to death by the Hall of Justice, and the sentence was carried out. That was the establishment of the Hall of Justice. Later on, the 2 races did not have any conflicts. They were just small squabbles. But 1.5 years ago, the conflict intensified. An ancient relic was found in the realm of blazing flame. It was said to be a land of treasures refined by a perfect completion warrior. This attracted many young masters and young ladies of the major races to explore. Even the god of death sent a team of young masters and young ladies. Inside the supreme treasure land, the young masters and young mistresses of the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe started fighting. The Gang tribe's number 1 young master brought a supreme artifact and accidentally killed the Tong tribe's young master. This time, it was like poking a hornet's nest. The Tong tribe was enraged. They demanded the number 1 young master of the Gang tribe to be executed. This young master of the Gang tribe was going to be trained to be the next family patriarch. He was talented, and he was very close to the complete completion. There was a good chance that he could reach that level. Otherwise, the Tong tribe wouldn't have given him a supreme relic weapon. The Gang tribe was unwilling, and the Tong tribe had lost a future family patriarch. How could they let this go? Therefore, the Tong tribe mobilized their armies to fight without asking the Hall of Justice to do anything. The Gang tribe was not prepared. They were ambushed by the Tong tribe. Several astral realms were destroyed, and 4 or 5 patriarchs, close to the complete completion, were killed. The entire Chaotic Star region was shocked when the news spread out. Many dominant forces, such as the god of death, were reluctant to engage in a chaotic war because it would ruin the favorable situation that they had worked so hard to build. Once the war broke out, the other forces could be affected. If another chaotic war broke out, some dominant forces could be wiped out. Under a stable situation, the other major races had no hope of overthrowing the dominant forces. However, once the war broke out, the other major races would have a chance. Maybe, after the war, some dominant forces would be wiped out and new ones would emerge. None of the parties with vested interests wanted to lose their current status and territory. The 9 powerful warriors of the god of death gathered together to discuss. They also sent a message to Lu Li. Lu Ling could not reach Lu Li. She gave him a fake imperial edict, saying that Lu Li was in closed-door cultivation and didn't want to be distracted. She asked the 9 powerful warriors to make the decision themselves. After the 9 magnates discussed for a while, they decided to mediate and make peace. The Gang tribe and the Tong tribe were in a heated battle. Persuasion would not work. Sending messages would not help. Therefore, Emperor Li and Emperor Yu flew over with 20 powerful warriors close to the complete completion of the Tong tribe. The other dominant forces sent their leaders and powerful warriors as well, trying to stop the conflict by force. Emperor Li was humiliated. He went to the Tong tribe, but not even the complete completion of the Tong tribe would see him. A third patriarch came and told Emperor Li not to get involved, or else he would have to face the consequences. Emperor Li went to the Gang tribe. A chief patriarch of the Gang tribe came, but he only listed the crimes of the Tong tribe and asked the god of death to help them wipe out the Tong tribe. Emperor Li was given the cold shoulder. When he was about to come back, he was attacked by a group of mysterious, powerful warriors. 3 great patriarchs were killed. When it happened, the Gang tribe claimed that it was the Tong tribe who attacked, but the Tong tribe claimed that it was the Gang tribe. Emperor Li felt humiliated. The god of death was one of the dominant forces, and Emperor Li was the leader of the god of death. Now that he had been humiliated, he had to fight back. After several days without any reply from Lu Li, Emperor Imo set off with a team. More than half of the warriors of the god of death that were close to the complete completion of the god of death were sent out. Many other Saint Kings flew toward the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. Chapter 36:27. Something is wrong. Lu Li's first thought was that something was not right after he heard everything. It was understandable that the Gang race and the Tong race wanted to go to war because of old scores and new grievances. However, Emperor Li represented the face of the god of death. Slapping Emperor Li's face was the same as slapping Lu Li's face, not to mention killing the great patriarch of death. The 2 dominant forces had been nice to him. When he came back from the universe region, patriarchs of the 2 races came to visit him. Why would they be so tough this time? Offending the god of death and Lu Li was not a good thing for the 2 races. Lu Li was not in a hurry to leave or give orders to Lu Ling. He thought about it. After a while, his eyes glowed. Finally, he figured out the reason. Hegemony. The 2 races wanted to be the most dominant force in the chaotic star region, just like the Guam race did in the past. The 2 races had old scores and new scores. But that was not the fundamental reason. The real reason for the war was that both races wanted to be the most dominant force in the chaotic star region. They wanted to reach the status of the Guam race and become the leader of the chaotic star region. Since they were going to fight for hegemony, then the war must be fought. Nobody could stop it. Emperor Li was getting carried away by the god of death's influence. Did he want to mediate? Did he want to use his reputation to suppress the 2 races? How could he possibly suppress the 2 races? It just so happened that the 2 races were fighting for hegemony. Naturally, the 2 races would slap Emperor Li in the face when he showed his face. The 2 races were trying to establish their dominance. But Lu Li didn't think the 2 races were behind the attack on Emperor Li and the 3 great patriarchs' deaths. It was possible that some major races were behind the scenes, trying to confuse the situation and work together to assassinate Emperor Li. The chaotic star region had been resting for 100 years. Both the Gang race and the Tong race had 2 warriors at the complete completion of the chaotic star region. They had over 100 warriors that were close to the complete completion of the chaotic star region. They were the most powerful forces. Back then, the situation in the chaotic star region had just stabilized. The two races didn't dare to act rashly, fearing that they would end up like the Guam race. Now, after 100 years, the two races were getting restless. They wanted to make a move. If they could become the most dominant force, the benefits would be unimaginable. As long as they killed each other, they would be the strongest force in the chaotic sky star area. No one would dare to disobey them. Luli believed that some of the weaker forces might have been bribed by the two races and become minions of the two races. They would not say anything about this, nor would they stop it. They might even join the war. There was one more thing. Luli suspected that the two races had figured out his background, or rather, the predicament that the king of the eastern region was in. Little White had been in closed-door cultivation. The king of the eastern region would not do Luli any favors. Therefore, even if Luli humiliated Little White, without the support of a complete warrior of the eastern region, what else could Luli do? It's still not right. Luli shook his head. Theoretically speaking, the two races should not have the guts to humiliate him. He suspected that the two clans had obtained some sort of backer. Could it be that he had sought refuge with one of the major clans in the immortal domain? Either way, Luli felt he was in big trouble. If he did not handle this well, then the Grim Reaper might be implicated. Once the Grim Reaper was in trouble, Luli would not have a good life. Luli thought about it and sent a message to Lu Ling. First, I will go back right away. I think I can get back to the chaotic sky star area in half a year. Second, send my message to King of Wings. Tell him to call back all the powerful warriors of the 8 galaxies. Third, tell King of Wings to send out scouts. I want to know the situation of the entire chaotic sky star area. Fourth, close all the branches in the 8 galaxies. Send assassins there to keep an eye on the 8 galaxies. Report to me at once if anything unusual happens. Fifth, tell the Grim Reaper to be on full alert and be ready for war. Okay, I will go to King of Wings at once. Lu Ling understood the gravity of the situation. She wasted no time and was about to leave when she thought of something. She said, "Should we send a message to Emperor Li and Emperor Mo to calm down?" Lu Li replied, "Go and find out where Emperor Mo and the others are. Then come back and tell me. I will send a message in person." Okay. Lu Ling was swift and decisive. She went to King of Wings, who stayed behind to deliver Lu Li's order. King of Wings did not ask any questions. He could tell that it was Lu Li's order. Only Lu Li could give the order in such a tone and manner. Lu Ling did not have the courage to do so, even if she wanted to pretend. But King of Wings did ask, "Lu Li is not at the Tianyuan city?" Yes. Lu Ling knew she could not hide it from King of Wings. She said, "He has been away for years. I just contacted him today. He said he will be back in half a year." Well, where are Emperor Mo and the others now? That is what Lu Li wants to know. King of Wings answered, "Emperor Li and the others are hiding at the Serene Moon region. Emperor Mo should be at the Blackwater region by now." Okay, I will send a message to him now. Lu Ling turned around and left. King of Wings stopped her and said, "Tell me at once if Lu Li has any orders. I will do my best to carry them out." Lu Ling nodded and left. King of Wings called many patriarchs over to carry out Lu Li's orders without any hesitation. The patriarchs were a bit surprised, but they were relieved after they heard that it was Lu Li's order. Their faces relaxed. For King of Wings and the patriarchs, as long as Lu Li was in charge, nothing else mattered. It was as if Lu Li could stand up for them, even if the sky was falling. They did not have to think too much. They just had to follow Lu Li's orders. Lu Li used the map to search for the Blackwater region after he received the information from Lu Ling. Soon, he found the region according to the map. Then, he began to search for Emperor Mo's battleships. In less than an hour, he found dozens of battleships, and Emperor Mo was in a cabin. Lu Li did not waste any time. He said directly, "Emperor Mo, it is me, Lu Li." What? Emperor Mo's eyes were wide open. He used psychic power to search, but found nothing. He murmured in surprise, "Lu Li, where are you? I am not around. You don't have to look for me." Lu Li continued, "I know. I suggest that you don't make a big fuss. Go to the Serene Moon region and meet up with Emperor Li. Wait for a while." Wait until I get there. I think this is a complicated matter. It is not as simple as it looks. If we act rashly, we, the god of death, will be involved as well. We won't even know how we die. Okay. To Lu Li's surprise, Emperor Imo nodded and said, I don't want to do anything directly. I just want to show my attitude. I couldn't reach you, remember? Now that you are here, we will listen to you. We will do whatever you say. Okay. Lu Li was relieved to hear Emperor Mo's words. He thought about it and said, Go and tell Emperor Li not to act on impulse. I have been secretly investigating. I think it will be half a year before I get to the Serene Moon region. Don't worry. Since the gang race and the Tong race are going to fight, let them fight for a while. I want to find out who the culprits are and then kill them to avenge Emperor Li. Chapter 36:28. Lu Li retracted his psychic power after he told Emperor Mo what to do. Emperor Mo was used to Lu Li's unpredictable means. He thought Lu Li was lurking nearby, but he didn't want others to know. Emperor Mo wanted to investigate in secret. Blood Fairy. Lu Li said to Blood Fairy, I need to go back now. How are you doing? Not a problem. Blood Fairy replied, I have recorded more runes, enough for me to study for hundreds of years. When I am done, I think I can solve most of the runes in the Ice Harem. By then, I can help you find treasures. Okay, let's go. Lu Li asked Blood Fairy to lead the way. He looked back at the statue and left. He thought about putting away the statue, but he was afraid that he might trigger the runes here. Blood Fairy was not confident that she could solve the runes. It was better not to do anything rash. Otherwise, he would die before he knew it. Lu Li went back to the Ice River Valley. Blood Fairy cracked the formation, and he snuck away. Then, Lu Li left the region of universe as fast as he could. As soon as he left the region of universe, Lu Li took out his battleship and flew toward the region of chaotic star. He began to use the map to check on the situation. Lu Li felt there was more to the battle between the gang race and the Tong race. If there were no external factors, the two races would not have made such a brazen move. Both races had two warriors at the consummate realm, and they were almost at the same level. In other words, the two races were evenly matched. Both sides must be aware of the situation. If they were to fight, both sides would suffer. That being the case, the two sides went to war without hesitation. Clearly, they could not hold each other back any longer. If the leaders of the two races were not idiots, then both sides must have cards up their sleeves. In other words, both sides believed that they would win for sure and that they could destroy the other. In this way, they would become the absolute overlords of the region of Chaotic Star. Only such great interest would drive them to take risks out of desperation. That was why they dared to slap the Grim Reaper and Lu Li in the face. Therefore, Lu Li planned to use the map to find out more about the two sides and their cards. In this way, he could turn the tables and persuade the two races to stop fighting. Lu Li's biggest request was not to humiliate the two races, but to stop the war. At the very least, they could not let the Chaotic Star region descend into chaos. It was not a good thing for the heavenly Chaotic Star fields to be in chaos. It was also easy for forces with ulterior motives to fish in troubled waters. The Grim Reaper was still developing rapidly. In a few hundred years, the Grim Reaper would be able to gain a stable foothold. Before that, Lu Li would not allow anything that would harm the Reaper's interest to happen. As long as the situation was not chaotic, nothing would happen to the Grim Reaper because Lu Li had Lu Xiaobai and the king of the eastern region behind him. On top of that, Lu Li himself had conquered two super races. Therefore, the average forces wouldn't dare to go against the Grim Reaper and him openly. First of all, Lu Li used the map to scan the area where the battle was taking place. The territories of the gang race and the Tong race were adjacent to each other. The area where the battle was taking place was also at the border of their territories. Lu Li found the main forces of the two parties after several glances. The main forces of both sides were currently stationed in 3 of the gang tribes' realms. 2 of the realms were garrisoned by the armies and experts of both sides, while the third was the battlefield. The battle was going on in that realm, but not many powerful warriors were sent out. Both sides had sent out 20 warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm and millions of warriors. They are fighting for real. Luli took a look to make sure that the two races were not putting on a show. The battle was fierce and chaotic. More than 1 million warriors from both sides had died. Many of the warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm were wounded as well. Some of them had even died. In terms of putting on a show, it didn't matter if there were casualties. Warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm were the foundation of the two races. Great patriarchs would not be sacrificed for the sake of the show. Luli observed for a while. He noticed that the warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm on both sides were truly enraged. They released powerful moves and looked at each other as if they were enemies that had killed their parents. After several hours of observation, the battle came to an end. Both sides had suffered heavy casualties. Both sides had retreated. Luli noticed that on both sides, 6 warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm had passed away. Of the 5 million warriors, only 2 million survived. The battlefield had turned into a living hell. Dead bodies were everywhere. Luli used psychic power to follow the army of the gang race. When the army retreated, Luli followed the great patriarchs. The great patriarchs went back to a big city. The bodies of the great patriarchs that had passed away were collected. The other great patriarchs entered a castle. In the castle, dozens of warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm sat on the two sides. The seats at the top were empty. Luli wondered if the consummate warriors of the gang race were here. As soon as the great patriarchs came back, they began to curse and yell. Luli waited patiently. 2 hours later, Luli didn't hear anything useful. The gang race was discussing how to destroy the Tong race and how to fight the battle tomorrow. Some suggested splitting up and killing their way to the central region of the Tong race. Some suggested that some great patriarchs should hide and come out at the critical moment. What Luli cared about was not how to fight. What he wanted was to find the trump card of the gang race. Since the gang race was here, Luli couldn't go to the Tong race's side. He kept on observing. After several hours of arguing, the chief patriarch of the gang race dismissed the meeting for a rest. Then, the chief patriarch walked to his side chamber. Luli was intrigued. The chief patriarch might have gone to meet the consummate warrior of the gang race. Maybe he could find something from their conversation. Luli followed him with psychic power. The chief patriarch went into a secret room in the side chamber. The new gang race patriarch is here. Luli saw a strong man sitting in the secret room. He had seen this man before. He was the new gang race patriarch. The former gang race patriarch had abdicated, and this new consummate warrior took over. The former gang race patriarch lived behind the scenes. That being said, the old gang race patriarch should have the final say when it came to important matters. After the chief patriarch went in, Luli had just checked on the gang race patriarch when the latter's eyes glowed coldly, and he emitted a horrifying chi and energy. Luli sighed. It was not easy for a consummate warrior to check. This gang race patriarch had just reached the consummate realm less than 200 years ago. Yet, he could still tell that Luli was checking. Now that he was noticed, Luli knew that he could not find anything. He dispersed his psychic power at once. On the other side, the chief patriarch of the gang race checked, but found nothing. He asked, "Patriarch, what is it? Is there a powerful warrior of the Tong race here?" "I don't know." A glint of doubt rose in the eyes of the gang race patriarch. He closed his eyes and tried again. Then, he shook his head and said, "This is strange. I just felt that there was a pair of eyes staring at us. But I could not find anything. Is Luli hiding nearby?" The chief patriarch of the gang race felt his eyelids twitching. Even if a consummate warrior of the gang race sneaked over, the gang race patriarch would be able to tell. Unless it was Luli. But Luli had mysterious skills. Not even the previous gang race patriarch could find him. Third Master. Chapter 36-29. It had been a month. Luli had been using the map for a month, and he had learned something. Unfortunately, he did not find out what the two races were up to. He had learned that 6 of the 12 rulers were either bribed or intimidated by the Tong race and the gang race. 3 rulers from each side had chosen to side with the gang race and the Tong race. Even though they did not join the fight, they would not oppose the 2 races. They had chosen to remain neutral. The 6 rulers were relatively weak. How could they interfere when 2 major races were fighting for supremacy? After all, they were at the bottom. It did not matter to them who was the leader as long as their status of the dominant race was not affected. The 2 races had been fighting for a month with casualties on both sides. More than 10 million warriors, over 100 Saint Emperor patriarchs, and 20 to 30 warriors that were close to the completion of the Tong race died. It was a heavy loss. The 2 sides were evenly matched. It would not be good for either race if the fight went on like this. Yet, neither side had the intention to stop. Luli could not figure it out. The 2 races were fighting for supremacy. At this rate, both races would be weakened. How could the 2 races compete for supremacy? The 2 races enjoyed a high status in the chaotic star region. If many powerful warriors were to die, then they might be reduced to a second-tier force. By then, it would be difficult for them to protect themselves, let alone fight for supremacy. Luli kept on searching. He was on his way and had nothing to do. What if he could find something? Another month later, Emperor Mo arrived at the Serene Moon region and met up with Emperor Li. Emperor Li was clamoring to find the murderer and demand an explanation from the 2 races. Emperor Mo stopped him. After all, the Grim Reaper had not reached the completion of the Tong race. The situation was unclear. To act rashly could doom the Grim Reaper eternally. Emperor Li was just calling them names. He didn't have the guts to actually challenge the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. If he angered a completion of the 2 races, one of them could kill him in one move. Emperor Mo said that Luli was secretly checking the situation. He told Emperor Li to be patient and take action after he had a clear picture. The Serene Moon region was the territory of another dominator. It was not far away from the area where the Tong race and the Gang race were fighting. The presence of so many powerful warriors from a Grim Reaper was a deterrent in itself. In particular, Luli's whereabouts were unknown. This was like a hidden bomb that could go off at any time. The situation in the heavenly chaotic starfield had become chaotic. Many ruling factions had issued announcements calling for peace. They wanted the 2 races to calm down and talk rationally. They wanted the Judiciary Hall to judge them. There were also other races that announced that the Tong race and Gang race had broken the agreement from back then, not allowing the Adjudicator Hall to judge them and directly starting a war. This was a violation of the agreement. They called for the 2 races to immediately stop fighting, or else they would join forces to protect the authority of the Adjudicator Hall. The ones who had made these announcements were the great tribes that were second only to the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. These 2 tribes had openly declared war on each other, which was equivalent to tearing up the agreement and looking down on them. These great clans and forces were naturally displeased. In any case, it was one thing to send troops or not. It was always good to shout a few times. The Grim Reaper didn't make any announcements because Luli didn't allow it. The fact that the Grim Reaper army was near the battlefield was enough to show their attitude. During this period of time, there were many chaotic battles in the territories of many dominating forces. For example, the armies and experts of 2 great forces that were adjacent to each other were attacked. According to the various signs, it seemed that they were assassinated by the enemy's experts. The 2 forces didn't act rashly, nor did they declare war. Instead, they began to investigate in secret. After a while, they found many strange details. Even though they couldn't figure out who did it, there was one thing that could be proven. It was not the others' doing. There was someone behind the scenes that was stirring up a war. This incident was a wake-up call for many dominating forces. Clearly, there was a group of powerful forces stirring up trouble in the dark. They wanted the chaotic star region to be in chaos so that they could fish in troubled waters. The other 10 masters sent back messages, telling everyone to stay on their feet and not to act rashly. They had to figure out the situation first and then plan slowly. Luli also asked Emperor Mo to send a message on behalf of the Grim Reaper, telling everyone to stay calm. If the gang race and the Tong race wanted to fight, then let them do it for a while. As long as the other dominating forces stayed calm, the chaotic star region would not be in chaos. It was unlikely that the gang race and the Tong race would start a war against the other 10 masters. Even though there were 6 masters who were secretly following the gang race and the Tong race, they were just following them, not taking orders from the 2 races. At the very least, they would not take part in the war. They didn't want the interests of their races to be harmed. Therefore, after some discussion, the other 10 masters decided not to take any actions and wait and see. 2 months later, Lu Li was about to arrive at the chaotic star region. He asked Emperor Mo to send a message to the other 10 masters, asking them to send representatives to the Serene Moon universe to discuss the matter of the gang race and the Tong race. When the time came, Lu Li would personally come out and share some of the information he had discovered with everyone. Lu Li indicated that he had already grasped some very special information. Emperor Mo sent a message to the other 9 masters. Upon receiving the message, they convened a meeting of patriarchs at once. Family patriarchs attached great importance to it as well. In the end, all the masters decided to send representatives to the Serene Moon universe. Some sent family patriarchs, some chief patriarchs, and the lowest one was second patriarch. The last part of Lu Li's message piqued their interest. Had Lu Li learned some information about the force behind the scenes? The news that the 10 masters were going to have a meeting spread to the ears of the gang race and the Tong race. Warriors and middle-level warriors of the gang race and the Tong race were nervous, mainly because Lu Li was the one who initiated the meeting. What if the 10 masters joined hands to attack the 2 races? By then, the 2 races could be wiped out. Back in the days, Lu Li could drive the Guam race out of the chaotic star region. Strong as the gang race and the Tong race were, they were not as strong as the Guam race. What was more, Lu Li had the chance to unite the 9 forces. If they did, then the 2 races would be in danger. However, the family patriarchs of the 2 races suddenly gave an order for the 2 races to keep fighting and to ignore the other 10 masters. This made the martial artists of the 2 clans very puzzled. Not to mention the 10 dominant factions joining forces. If they continued to fight like this, it would only end in a lose-lose situation for both sides. What was the point? No matter what, the order of the family patriarchs could not be disobeyed. The great patriarchs had learned their lesson. While they were fighting, they did not risk their lives. Instead, they were passive. They let their warriors and saint emperors fight. Once they were injured, they would retreat. They would not fight with their lives on the line. The messengers sent by the 8 masters were teleported to the Brahmin city, the main city of the Serene Moon universe. Then, they flew toward the Serene Moon universe on battleships. Lu Li had entered the chaotic star region as well. He had changed his looks, and he didn't fly with great fanfare. Instead, he snuck in. It would take him 2 months to arrive at the Serene Moon universe. During this time, there were more scouts around the Serene Moon universe. The god of death had mobilized a large number of top-level scouts. Lu Li and the gang race noticed that there were many scouts nearby. Those scouts were not from the 10 masters. They might not be from the Tong race or the gang race. It meant that there were 1 or even 2 mysterious forces around. Master 3. Chapter 3630. A month later, the messengers from the 9 rulers arrived at a city where Emperor Li was staying. The number of powerhouses and martial artists who came to this big city recently had reached its peak in history. There were more than 200 powerhouses who were infinitely close to the great perfection realm, and there were tens of millions of martial artists and scouts who came from all directions. The god of death had stationed tens of thousands of scouts in the Serene Moon region and nearby areas to monitor the situation. The messengers from the 9 forces were relieved that the god of death scouts were monitoring. The god of death had dozens of powerful warriors, but the 9 forces added up had more than 100. They were not afraid that the god of death would make a move. When the messengers arrived, Emperor Li came out to greet them in person. He told them to wait for a few days and that Lu Li was on his way. The messengers didn't say anything. They could wait for a few days. They gathered together and discussed. They realized that the Tong race and the gang race were behaving strangely. Weren't the Tong race and the gang race afraid that the 10 forces would work together? On the off chance that the Tong race and the gang race were united, the two races could be wiped out. The 10 forces had 5 warriors at the complete perfection realm, more than the two races. The number of warriors that were close to the complete perfection realm was even more. The gang race and the Tong race were still fighting as if no one else was around. They didn't take the gathering seriously, which confused the messengers. Also, the god of death said that there were many strange scouts nearby. They were not from the Tong race, the gang race, or the 10 rulers. Where did they come from? Everything was confusing to the messengers from the 9 rulers. They were waiting for Lu Li to come out and solve the mystery. More than 20 days had passed, and the 9 sovereigns were growing impatient. On this day, Empress Li finally invited them to a castle for a gathering. Guys, how about we send 3 warriors from each force? Our great patriarchs are waiting outside as well. They're not going in. Emperor Imo said with a smile. Each of the 9 forces would bring 20 powerful warriors with them. The hall might not be able to accommodate so many powerful warriors. The messengers from the 9 forces discussed and agreed. The powerful warriors of the god of death were all outside. They knew how many warriors of the god of death would come. At most, there would be Lu Li. What could they do? Did Lu Li dare to kill them? If Lu Li acted rashly, the 9 forces would fight back, and even the Grim Reaper would be destroyed. A group of powerful warriors agreed. 3 from each force went in. Emperor Li activated the runes. A family patriarch of a major force looked around, but did not see Lu Li. Instead, he saw a teleportation altar. The family patriarch asked with dissatisfaction, "Where is Lu Li? Why did they set up a teleportation altar here?" "My apologies, everyone." Emperor Li forced a smile and said, "Lu Li said that there are too many people in the city, and it is not a good time to talk. So, he is waiting for you in a secluded valley. He is waiting for you to move over. Please forgive him." Oomph. The Grand Master of the Hall of Seal was enraged. "Lu Li, you are so arrogant. Do you think we are monkeys?" I don't dare. Emperor Li could only apologize. He smiled and said a few words of advice. The experts didn't mind. Even if the Grim Reaper was given 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to ambush them. The group of experts entered, followed by Emperor Li, Emperor Imo, and Emperor Yu. After a flash of white light, the powerful warriors were teleported to a valley. The environment was nice and beautiful, but the valley was covered with runes. The warriors could not use psychic power to check. They did not know where they were. Of course, this must be the Serene Moon region. They had only been teleported for a short while. The city where they were gathered must not be far away. Ha 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 ha. They heard a loud laugh. A white-haired young man was standing on grass. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for giving me face and come and talk. Please take a seat." There were many tables and cushions on the grass. There were fruits and wine on the tables as well. Lu Li must have arranged everything. The powerful warriors checked for a while. They were relieved to see that there were no outsiders in the valley. They walked over and sat down. The Grand Master of the Hall of Seal was an impatient man. As soon as he sat down, he said, "Lu Li, why did you call us here? Let's get straight to the point. You said you found something? Tell me about it." Lu Li picked up his goblet and said, "Grand Master Long, don't be hasty. It is not easy for us to get together. It is a blessing. Come on, let's drink to our heart's content." The powerful warriors picked up their goblets and drank. Lu Li stood up and said, "Now that you know about the battle between the gang race and the Tong race, I will not waste more time. Today, I have invited you here because I want to show you something." Buzzing, Lu Li took out a memory crystal. He poured some origin energy into it. The memory crystal glowed. An image appeared in midair, attracting all the powerful warriors' attention. The image in the memory crystal was of a cave with more than 100 powerful warriors sitting in it. Clearly, they were all close to the perfect completion. What was more, they did not know any of them. Of all the powerful warriors in the Chaotic Star region that were close to the perfect completion, they all knew that there were only so many of them. All of them were recorded. Only a small number of old warriors in seclusion might not know about them. If they did not know any of the more than 100 powerful warriors here, then there could only be one explanation. They were not from the Chaotic Star region. A group of powerful warriors were cultivating in the cave. A powerful warrior came in. All of them opened their eyes. An old warrior asked, "Are we going to take action?" "No hurry." The powerful warrior waved his hand and said, "Our superiors have said that the fish have not taken the bait yet. Be patient. We may have to cultivate here for a couple of years. We are here to tell you not to go out for the time being. The god of death has sent many scouts to investigate. Don't let the cat out of the bag." With that said, the powerful warrior left, and the image disappeared. Everyone was in an uproar. The conversation was short, but it contained a lot. First of all, these powerful warriors must be hiding in the Chaotic Star region. Secondly, they had come here with a premeditated plan. They were going to plan a big operation. A powerful warrior of a major race stood up, shouted to Luli, "Luli, these powerful warriors are in the Chaotic Star region? Which force are they from?" The group of powerful warriors stared at Luli, who nodded and said, "Of course, it is in the Chaotic Star region, and it is in a universe of the gang race. As for where they are from, I don't think it is hard to guess. You can think about it. What do you think they are from that they can send out more than 100 warriors that are close to the perfect completion?" "The immortal region." A patriarch of a major race shouted in surprise. Some super families and forces of the 8 galaxies had more than 100 powerful warriors that were close to the perfect completion. But they could not send out all of their forces unless they wanted to migrate to the Chaotic Star region. There were less than 10 families or forces in the 8 galaxies that had more than 100 powerful warriors that were close to the perfect completion. They would be the overlords in the other galaxies. There was no need for them to give up their base to come to the Chaotic Star region. The answer was obvious. These powerful warriors were from a super force in the immortal region. The scouts outside the Serene Moon region were clearly from the immortal region. Third Master. Chapter 36-31. Luli's memory crystal wasn't something he recorded when he sneaked into this place, but something he saw on the master map. This was a new skill Li discovered on the master map. It wasn't hard to find this group of people. Li found a mysterious, powerful warrior at the gang race. This mysterious warrior communicated with the chief elder of the gang race, and then left quietly. Li followed him, and successfully found the more than 100 powerful warriors. The more than 100 powerful warriors made the 9 rulers and Emperorly panic. The number of powerful warriors didn't matter. Even if there were twice as many, the 10 rulers could easily destroy them. The main reason was that the more than 100 powerful warriors came from the immortal region, which was why the leaders of the 10 forces were panicking. For the powerful warriors of the 8 galaxies, the immortal region was a higher level than them. The number and quality of the powerful warriors in the immortal region was much higher than theirs. For example, if the immortal region was the Tianyu galaxy, then the 8 galaxies were the endless ruins of gods, the realms controlled by the Blood Rock race and the Boring Blade race. The super forces of the immortal region had many perfect realm warriors. For example, the king of the eastern region could easily mobilize more than a dozen. Also, there were weak and strong ones. For example, if the king of the eastern region came out, all the perfect realm warriors of the 8 galaxies wouldn't be a match for him. When the powerful warriors of the 8 galaxies were young, they all went to the immortal region to train and see how powerful it was. They were instinctively afraid of the immortal region, so when they heard that it was a super force of the immortal region, they all panicked. If it was a realm king family, then they wouldn't be able to escape destruction no matter what. No, it's not a realm king family. A powerful warrior came to a realization and murmured. If it was a realm king family, why would they need to scheme? If they sent any messenger, no one would dare to challenge a realm king family. They would have to obediently surrender. The super forces of the immortal region usually don't come to the 8 galaxies. An elder of a major clan murmured. The realm king families of the immortal region had a secret agreement. The super forces of the immortal region couldn't go to the 8 galaxies and cause trouble, or they would be severely punished. For the immortal region, the 8 galaxies were the source of warriors. Each of the 8 major star fields had tens of thousands of planar domains and tens of thousands of cultivators. Every year, countless cultivators would enter the celestial domain. Although some of them would return to the 8 major star fields, there were still many cultivators who stayed in the celestial domain. If the great powers of the immortal realms extended their tentacles into the 8 star fields, then this place would be controlled by the great powers, and all the resources here would be plundered. If the martial artists here didn't have any resources, how could they produce experts? The celestial domain was embroiled in war year after year, and countless martial artists died every moment. Without the martial artists from the 8 major star fields, how could the celestial domain be as prosperous as it was now? Therefore, the Realm King family would never extend their reach into the 8 major star regions. They also disdained to occupy the territory here. Of course, even though the Realm King clans had jointly issued a notice, the immortal region's super clans and powers didn't dare to act recklessly in the open. They would still play some tricks in the dark. For example, in the past, the Gu clan had sought refuge with 2 of the immortal region's superpowers. Every year, they would pay tribute to the 2 superpowers. These were all done in secret, and these 2 forces would never admit to it openly. These over 100 supreme experts, which supreme power of the immortal realms were they from? What were they doing in the chaotic starfields? Did they say they were going to take action? What kind of action were they going to take? Who were they going to deal with? What was their ultimate goal? Countless questions floated in the minds of the top 10 rulers. They were all a little nervous, afraid that the immortal region's forces would target them. They were afraid that the immortal region's forces would act recklessly in the chaotic starfields, destabilizing their position as rulers and breaking the current balance. Everyone, Lu Li opened his mouth, attracting the attention of all the experts. While the experts were panicking and didn't know what to do, when Lu Li opened his mouth, they felt as if they had found their backbone. They all became spirited. Lu Li looked around and said in a low voice, "No matter what race or force this group of experts comes from, no matter what they do, no matter what goal they have, I think there are a few things that can be confirmed. First, this group of experts came with ill intentions. They have a big conspiracy. Their arrival is very likely to change the current balance of the chaotic starfields, break our peace, and destroy our order. Then they will encroach on our current interests and even cause the destruction of some of our clans and forces. These are all possibilities. Does anyone object?" The experts nodded slightly. What Lu Li said was exactly what they were thinking. Once the situation was chaotic, anything could happen. Facing the major forces of the immortal region, no one had the confidence to fight them alone. Lu Li paused to give the warriors time to think before he continued. "Secondly, we all have vested interests, and we don't have greater ambitions. Or, we don't have the ability to realize greater ambitions. I don't think you can deny this, right? In other words, we all have the same goal. We all want to protect our current territories and interests. That is why we are gathered here today, right?" The experts nodded again. Lu Li's words were straightforward, but they were the truth. Lu Li and the other experts nodded. He continued, "Third, none of you want to be a slave, right? If you don't want to submit to a force, at least not sincerely, to be exploited by other forces, to be a dog for other forces, right? Of course, who wants to be a dog? Who wants to be a slave? That's right. If you don't want to be a master, who wants to be a grandson?" Several experts echoed. The 10 dominators were the overlords of the chaotic star region. Unless they had no other choice, no one wanted to be someone else's grandson. They had gotten used to being a master over the years. Back in the day, the Gue race was so oppressive to all the major races. When the Gue race was angry, all the major races would tremble in fear. They didn't want to live like that anymore. Lu Li smiled. He spread his hands and said, "I'm the same as you all. We, the Grim Reaper, don't want to be a grandson. Therefore, I have gathered you all here to discuss how to protect our interests, our status, and how to continue to be the dominators." Before the others could express their opinions, Lu Li's face turned cold. He suddenly became murderous and said, I am sorry to tell you that 2 of the 12 dominators have become sons. They want to make us their grandsons, to ride on our heads and shit on us. Those 2 large clans have openly violated our original agreement and started a war. More importantly, they're not really fighting. They're putting on a show. They want the chaotic star region to be in chaos. Then, the more than 100 powerful warriors from the immortal region will mix things up. In the end, they will defeat us one by one. They will beat us into submission and make us their grandsons. I want to know if you're willing to do this. If any of the major races or forces are willing to be their grandsons, then forget what I said, and you can leave right now. A show. All the powerful warriors were shocked. Many of them couldn't believe it. The Gang race and the Tong race were fighting so fiercely, and it was just a show. This was a real battle with swords and spears. Both sides had lost many experts. This couldn't be a lie. Chapter 36-32. That is impossible. How can it be an act? The future family patriarch of the Tong race is really dead, right? Many great patriarchs died in the battle. Do they have to work so hard to put on an act? The Gang race and the Tong race have been enemies for generations. It has been so many years. How? Many powerful warriors began to question. As soon as the 2 races went to war, they sent over many scouts. Many powerful warriors of the 2 races died. How could they use the death of great patriarchs as an act? The cost was too high. Buzzing, a memory crystal in Lu Li's hand glowed again. The powerful warriors stopped talking and looked at Lu Li. Lu Li poured in origin energy. The crystal of memory lit up, and an image appeared. It was a castle. A young master was sitting in the castle. The young master was sitting there in boredom, drinking one cup after another. What? The powerful warriors looked at each other in confusion. They didn't see anything wrong. After a while, the runes in the castle were activated. The young master stopped cultivating. Outside the castle, an old man stealthily entered with 2 beautiful women. These 2 women were very charming and enchanting, and with a single glance, one could tell that they were top-quality bedfellows. That old man is from the Tong race. A patriarch of the Tong race shouted in surprise. He thought about it and said, I have seen him before. He is the chief steward of the Tong race, Tong Gue. Uncle Gue. A voice came from the image in the memory crystal. The young master's eyes glowed when he saw the 2 ladies. He looked at the old man with blame and said, What took you so long? I'm bored out of my mind. Future family patriarch. Uncle Gue's words caused all the experts present to explode. Uncle Gue said, You also know that we are at war with the Gang tribe. There are many scouts here, and there are also spies in the tribe. Therefore, this old servant has to be careful. Future family patriarch, please enjoy yourself. Family patriarch said that you will have to bear with it for several years. When the situation is settled, you can show up again. Uncle Gue left. After the young master activated the runes, his body began to squirm. Horns grew out of his forehead. His eyes turned dark purple. Some tattoo-like patterns appeared on his neck. After drinking a cup, he picked up an enchanting woman and walked into the room. Tonging. The crowd was in an uproar. All the clans and forces had information about the young master of the Tong clan. Many of the experts present had seen the young master of the Tong clan before, so they recognized him as soon as he returned to his original form. The image in the air disappeared, and the noisy crowd quickly calmed down. The atmosphere also became strange. Many experts' eyes flickered as they pondered. Was it because Lu Li's memory crystal was fake, or was the future family patriarch of the Tong race still alive? This was a trick. The Gang race and the Tong race were putting on a show. The memory crystal could be faked. Lu Li could ask some people to put on a show and record a scene. There were more than 100 powerful warriors in the first memory crystal. How could Lu Li sneak up to them and record without being noticed? The second image showed that the castle had activated the divine runes. This was a completely enclosed castle. How could Lu Li break the divine runes and come in without being noticed? If Lu Li had used a fake crystal of memory to deceive them and then instigate them to work together against the Tong race and the Gang race, then they would be taken advantage of. It was possible that they would fall into Lu Li's trap step by step and walk into the abyss. The Grand Master of the Temple of Gods was impatient. He asked directly, "Lu Li, I am curious. How did you record with the memory crystal? How did you find those hundreds of experts, sneak in without anyone noticing, and even record the memory crystal without being discovered?" "That is easy." Lu Li smiled and then vanished on the spot. The other powerful warriors understood Lu Li's intention. They began to use various means to search for Lu Li. However, after a while, none of the powerful warriors could see Lu Li. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, Lu Li reappeared on the spot. He took out a memory crystal. After he activated it, the image in the air showed what happened. Lu Li smiled proudly and said, "I can even sneak around those at the Great Perfection Realm without being noticed, let alone more than 100 powerful warriors that are close to the Great Perfection Realm. Otherwise, I would have been killed by the barbarian race and the rhino ape race." Many powerful warriors were amazed. Lu Li's art of hiding was the best in the world. He was really powerful. The Grand Master of the Temple of Gods asked again, "How can you prove that the image in the memory crystal is real? What if it is fake?" "It is very easy to prove." Lu Li spread his hands and said, "The future family patriarch of the Tong race is at the Huang Tong city of the Tong region. There is only one great patriarch guarding there. You can send some powerful warriors to capture him. I can tell you where the more than 100 powerful warriors are. Of course, I will only tell you this after we form an alliance and when we need to take action. Also, I think the Gang race and the Tong race have been in touch with several other races. I think you know that I am telling the truth. There is one more thing," Lu Li said seriously. "Few great patriarchs have died in the war between the two races. If you don't believe me, you can wait for a few more months and see if more great patriarchs will die." Lu Li's words made some family masters and patriarchs of some races uneasy. The Gang race and the Tong race had indeed contacted 3 races or forces respectively, and they were the 6 weakest ones. The Gang race and the Tong race didn't ask them to do anything. They just asked them to observe the situation from the other side and not get involved. As a matter of fact, the 6 masters knew very well that if they did nothing, they would be implicated when the situation became chaotic. That was why their messengers were here. They didn't want their interests to be harmed, and they didn't want to be cowards. "Guys," Lu Li said coldly again, "a major force of the Mystic region has colluded with the Gang race and the Tong race. They have mobilized more than 100 powerful warriors. And this is just what I have found out. How many are there that I haven't found out? Are there any warriors at the Great Perfection here? None of this is known yet. The Gang race and the Tong race are the 2 most powerful of the 12 masters. They have allied with the major races of the Mystic region. If we don't work together, we will be like a plate of loose sand. Then we will be doomed." "Of course." Lu Li glanced over coldly. After a pause, he continued, "If you want to surrender to the 2 races and the major races of the Mystic region, you can leave now. To each his own. I will not stop you. What I want to say is that the major races of the Mystic region only need 1 representative in the Chaotic Star region. Now, the Gang race and the Tong race have surrendered to the major races of the Mystic region. You can't even be a coward. You can only be slaves. You can be killed or tortured at will. Do you want to work together to protect your territories and interests, or do you want to wait for death? Or do you want to surrender? It's up to you." Chapter 36-33. As soon as Lu Li finished, everyone quieted down. No one talked. Instead, they were secretly communicating with each other. Most people believed Lu Li's words, because the evidence that Lu Li brought out was too solid and easy to investigate. Plus, with what the other races had found out, everyone knew what was going on. The truth should be similar to what Lu Li said. A major race of the Immortal region was working with the Tong race and the Gang race to stir up trouble. As for what the Immortal region was up to, they were not sure yet. But it could not be anything good. Based on the current situation, they wanted the entire Chaotic Star region to be in chaos. Emperor Li was attacked, and a mysterious force wanted to start a war between the 2 dominant forces. All of this proved that the Immortal region's current goal was to create chaos in the Chaotic Star region. Once the Chaotic Star region was in chaos, the situation would be out of control. If it was out of control, it would be easy for people to take advantage of it. It would be easy to be attacked, easy to be set up, easy to be destroyed. No matter what the situation was, it would not be good for the 10 dominant forces. It would all violate their interests. Just as Luli said, the 10 forces had no ambition or ability to become the #1 overlord of the Chaotic Star region. In other words, they did not have the ability to gain more benefits or become more powerful. Therefore, their biggest demand was to protect their current territory, their current status, and their vested interests. Therefore, they had to work together. If they did not, how could they fight against the major races of the Immortal region, the Gang race and the Tong race? How could they protect their interests? How could they control the situation? If they worked together, they would be a behemoth that no one could shake. The major races of the Immortal region, the Gang race and the Tong race, did not attack openly. This meant that they did not have absolute power. Otherwise, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. They could just crush them. Everyone knew some of the reasons. First of all, the major races of the Immortal region could not show themselves in public. Otherwise, they would violate the rules set by the 9 Realm Kings. Therefore, the powerful warriors of the major races of the Immortal region could only act in secret. They could only stir up trouble in the dark. They could not attack openly. Second, if the Gang race and the Tong race joined forces, once the outside world learned of this, the other 10 dominant forces would join forces immediately. Because these 2 races were the strongest, no other force could stand against them if they joined forces. That was why the Tong race and the Gang race started a war and put on a show. The reason they started the war seemed very simple now. It was to mix up the waters. The war between the 2 races was a violation of the original agreement between the 12 rulers. The other great races naturally had to interfere. For example, Empress Li immediately came over to interfere. Then, Empress Li was attacked. If it weren't for Lu Li, the Grim Reaper's army would have been mobilized and they would have been involved in the war. This time, it was the Grim Reaper. Next time, it could be the other Dominator forces. Under their covert guidance, countless forces in the Sky Chaotic Starfield would start a war. The entire Sky Chaotic Starfield would fall into chaos. Once the situation became chaotic, the Tong tribe and the Gang tribe might act separately and eliminate a few powerful sovereigns. At that time, the entire Chaotic Sky Starfield would no longer have any power to contend with them. Thinking of this, many of the experts present felt their hearts palpitate and their backs broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, they had Lu Li. Without Lu Li's reminder, everyone would have been dragged into this. The ending that awaited them definitely wouldn't be pretty. Even if they weren't destroyed, they would only be able to act according to the wishes of the Tong tribe and Gang tribe in the future. How could they have the status they had now? After the Seal Temple Master communicated with the 2 Seal Temple higher-ups beside him, the Seal Temple Master stood up and said, "I agree to join forces. If we don't, only death awaits us. As long as we join forces, those demons and monsters won't be able to shake us." The Seal Temple was ranked 4th, and the Temple Lord was not a great perfection stage, but his father was a great perfection stage, and a very strong one at that. If the Tong tribe or the Gang tribe wanted to contend for hegemony, they would be the first to be suppressed. If they weren't suppressed, how would the Tong tribe and the Gang tribe be able to command everyone? The Grand Elder of the 3rd-ranked Tuan clan stood up and said, "Our Tuan clan also agrees to join forces. No matter what, it's never a bad thing for everyone to join forces. If nothing bad happens, then we won't lose anything. If something bad happens, we can work together to protect our current interests." The Tuan clan was ranked 3rd, and they also had 2 great perfection realms. Unfortunately, one of their great perfection realms was dying, and the 2 great perfection realms were not particularly strong. With 2 great perfection realms, the Tuan clan was stronger than the other races. Even the weakest great perfection realms could win with 2 great perfection realms. Now that the Seal Temple and the Seal Temple had agreed to join forces, the matter was basically settled. Many of the other races had been bribed and subdued by the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. That being said, none of them wanted to be treated like a coward. If they could maintain the status quo, they would still be the masters. The 12 dominators were on an equal footing, and none of them had the right to order others around. The fact that they sent messengers here was proof that they were not willing to be controlled by the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. Agree. Okay, let's work together. We will advance and retreat together. Let's see what the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe are up to. The rest of the messengers expressed that an alliance would not do them any harm, only good. If things didn't turn out as Luli said, and the situation didn't worsen, then they could do nothing. At worst, they would offend the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe. The fact that the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe had started a war was a violation of the agreement. They had no respect for the other 10 dominators. Why should they care about the attitude of the other 2 races? Soon, the alliance was established. To Emperor Li and Emperor Mo's surprise, after the nomination of the Grand Master of the Temple of Seal, all the forces wanted Lu Li to be the temporary leader. The position of leader didn't have any real power. If it involved the interests of the other races and forces, they wouldn't buy it. But a leader was a leader. He was the most prestigious person in the Chaotic Star region. Would the Tong tribe and the Grand Master of the Temple of Seal not want this honor? Soon, Emperor Li and Emperor Mo understood. It was not easy to be the leader. They were putting Lu Li in a difficult position. To be the leader would be to stand out. The Tong tribe and the Gang tribe would bear grudges against him. If the Tong tribe, the Gang tribe, and other forces from the Immortal region were to seek revenge, Lu Li would be the first to bear the brunt. They were the 12 dominators, the 12 rulers of the Chaotic Star region. What did Lu Li want? You gathered the other 10 dominators to form an alliance, and you want to be the leader? You are working with the 10 dominators to exclude us. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to deal with the 2 races? The bird that sticks out will be shot. If the Gang tribe and the Tong tribe were to seek revenge, they would do it to Lu Li first. The other races and forces wouldn't feel so much pressure. What was more, Lu Li had the strange art of concealment. He had once suppressed 2 super races. Lu Li had a powerful background. He was backed by the king of the East region. Who else could be the leader if not him? Lu Li was well aware of the thoughts of the other races and forces. He did not hesitate for long before he said, "Thank you for your trust. Our alliance is only here to deal with the matter between the Gang race and the Tong race. When the matter is settled, the position of leader will be removed automatically. I will not be pretentious. I will be the leader, but I want to set 3 rules. Otherwise, it will be meaningless whether I am the leader or not." P.S. Some readers said that they couldn't subscribe to 2 chapters yesterday. They saw repeated chapters. This is a problem with the system. You can remove the book from the bookshelf and then search for the Eternal Dragon Emperor to add another bookshelf. Another way is to call the customer service number. The updates will be fine. Also, the Eternal Dragon Emperor estimated that the book would be finished in 2 or 3 months. Chapter 36-34. They wanted to use Lu Li as a shield. They had no objection to Lu Li's proposal of 3 rules. Of course, they could not go too far. The powerful warriors signaled Lu Li to go on. If it was reasonable, it would be fine. Lu Li organized his thoughts and said, "The first one is simple. We must advance and retreat together. For example, if we're going to fight, we will do it together. If one family is under attack, the other families must come together to help. Also, we cannot have internal conflicts. If one family dares to make trouble, the other families will work together to destroy that family first." Lu Li's proposal was reasonable. Otherwise, what was the point of forming an alliance? The experts didn't think too much, and all of them agreed. Lu Li moved on to the second point. "I want this place to be our temporary headquarters, right here in this valley. I have built the divine runes here in a special way. It will take at least half a month for a perfect warrior to crack it. We can teleport away easily. I have built many teleportation altars here. Each of our forces will have a patriarch stay here. If there is anything, say we need to attack together, the 10 patriarchs of the temporary headquarters will vote. If the temporary headquarters agrees to attack, then all forces must send troops. The second point made the powerful warriors ponder. Grandmaster of the Hall of Seals looked around with doubt and asked, "Are the divine runes here really that strong? Can I have a try?" Luli smiled and said, "Go ahead. All of you can attack together. If you can crack it, I will admit defeat." The powerful warriors were not convinced by Luli's words. Grandmaster of the Hall of Seals and several other powerful warriors stood up and began to attack the shield. After the time for one incense stick to burn, the powerful warriors were stunned. They had been attacking for the time for one incense stick to burn, and there were more than 10 powerful warriors attacking. Yet, the shield didn't even tremble, not to mention fading. Impressive. Grandmaster of the Hall of Seals gave a thumbs up and said, "I didn't know that you have such a powerful divine rune warrior. This divine inscription is too powerful. I'm convinced." Emperor Li and Emperor Yu looked at each other in shock. The divine rune was not built by the other powerful warriors, but by Lu Li. How could Lu Li be so accomplished in divine runes at such a young age? They heard that Lu Li was good at deciphering divine runes, but they didn't know that he was so good at it. Lu Li cupped his fists and said, "I am sorry. Assassination is our main business. Naturally, we have some knowledge in divine runes. What do you think about the second point?" "I have an opinion." An elder of a major clan stood up and said, "We have a total of 10 major forces. What if there is a serious disagreement and both sides have 5 votes? What will we do then?" "This is simple." The Grand Master of the Temple of Seal grinned and said, "Lu Li is the chief of alliance. One of his votes is equivalent to 2 votes. That makes 11 votes. Everyone has elected Lu Li as the leader. Are we not going to give him some special privileges?" The great elder of the Tuan tribe also nodded and said, "It should be so. Alliance Master, 2 votes." Since the 3rd and 4th rank forces had spoken, the rest naturally didn't say anything else. This second point was considered a success. Lu Li's second point was reasonable as well. They could set up a temporary headquarters here and discuss matters here. The patriarchs here could send messages back so that they could respond quickly. This was to prevent any unexpected incidents from happening. By the time everyone sent messages back and forth and came to an agreement, it would be too late. Seeing that everyone was in agreement, Lu Li said, "The third point is the most important. I know that some forces are related to the Tong race. They might have promised you something, or you might have arranged marriages or other complicated relationships. What I want to say is that once you are in the alliance, you must put the interests of the alliance above all else. If you're sitting on the fence, backstabbing us, or secretly sending messages to the Tong race, which lead to our failure, then once we find evidence, the other forces in the alliance will attack that force at once. We will not tolerate it." Lu Li's words made the higher-ups of several major forces twitch their eyelids. Just now, Lu Li glanced at them casually. It seemed to be normal, but they felt Lu Li seemed to know the inside story. "I absolutely agree with this." The Grand Master of the Temple of Seals stood up and said, "If you want to quit, then do it now. If the alliance is backstabbing us, then we will attack together and destroy them first." The chief patriarch of the Tuan race nodded in agreement and said, "We agree. Once we are discovered, we will send out powerful warriors to attack that race." One after another, other forces expressed their stance. The remaining forces or races had to do so, or else they would have to leave the alliance. Some major forces and races had thought about backstabbing and befriending the alliance. However, once Lu Li's 3 rules were put in place, it would be hard for them to get off once they realized that they were on board. If they were to do something detrimental to the alliance, then they would be doomed once they were discovered. "Good." Lu Li smiled and said with satisfaction, "Then, I, Lu Li, will be the leader. You all trust me and support me. I will do my best to lead you through this disaster, even at the cost of my life." Emperor Li, Emperor Mo, and Emperor Yu's eyes glowed. Luli was in the limelight and had become the first bird to stand out. That being said, there was no doubt that Luli's power had reached a horrifying level. If things went well, and they could solve this successfully, the reputation of the god of death would grow. He might not become a super overlord, but at least his position would be as stable as a mountain. A patriarch stood up, cupped his fists, and said, "Leader, the alliance has been established. What should we do next? Should we attack the Tong race and the Tong race directly? Or should we quietly kill the powerful warriors from the immortal region?" This was a question that all the powerhouses were very concerned about. If just 2 memory crystals were enough to make everyone go to war, it would be too unrealistic. Currently, the Tong race and the Xian race were not threatening their interests or attacking them. They were afraid that Lu Li would act rashly. "Of course we will not," Lu Li said with a smile. "When we go back, we only need to do 3 things. First, send out all our scouts and secretly monitor the territories under your control and the territories of the Tong race. Second, we need to prepare for war. Once something happens, we can take action as soon as we vote to do so. Third, we will stay at home and enjoy the show. We will see how long the Tong race and the Xian race will put on a show and how many of their warriors will die. Like I said, as long as we stay calm, the Tong race, the Xian race, and the immortal region will not be able to harm us." "Agreed. Good. That is for the best. I think it is doable." All the forces agreed with Lu Li's words. If Lu Li had said they were going to attack, they might have hesitated. However, Lu Li told them to wait and see, to find out the situation and to prepare for the battle, which was reasonable. It also proved that Lu Li was looking out for everyone's interests. This alliance was not for him or for the god of death. Seeing that everyone was responding, Lu Li put on a satisfied smile. He said, "Someone's trying to lure us into a trap. We just have to stand here and watch them jump around like clowns. Let's see how long they can do that." Chapter 36-35. After that, the 10 great forces discussed many details and made many agreements. They discussed for more than a day before dispersing one after another. After the powerful warriors were teleported out, they went their separate ways. Every force left behind a great patriarch to guard the place and several saint emperors to assist. After all the experts left, Emperor Li and the others gathered in a castle in Yue City. This time, there were a total of 5 giants. Apart from Emperor Li and the other 2, there was also the ancient emperor. They were all on the same side, so they sat down casually. As soon as they sat down and activated the rune, Emperor Li asked in a hurry, "Lu Li, is the information in the memory crystal real?" "Of course." Lu Li nodded. "How can it be fake? The immortal region, the alliance between the human and the Tong race, is real. But there is one thing I didn't tell them. There is more than one force in the immortal region. The Tong race has a hidden force as well." Buzzing, Lu Li took out another memory crystal and activated it. An image appeared. In a secret realm, more than 100 powerful warriors were sitting with their legs crossed. All of them were very close to the consummate realm. Emperor Li and the others looked uneasy. The 2 forces from the immortal region had sent so many powerful warriors to the chaotic star region. It was clear that they were up to no good. Otherwise, why would they come here to suffer in a cave instead of staying in the immortal region? Emperor Emo thought for a while and asked, "Lu Li, what else did you find out? Tell us." Of the 6 forces at the bottom, 3 have connections with the Tong race. At least on the surface, they have surrendered to the human and the Tong race respectively. But since they sent messengers here, it means they are not satisfied. Now that they're on our ship, it will be hard for them to get off. But it is not realistic to expect them to go all out against the human and the Tong race. At most, they will send some powerful warriors to make a show. The main force will still be us, the Huantuan race, the Temple of Seal, and the Fire Beacon Pavilion. Lu Li paused, and his face grew serious. Also, I am sorry to tell you that the 2 forces from the immortal region are here for us, the Grim Reaper. To be more precise, they are here for me. Emperor Li, Emperor Mo, Emperor Yu, and Emperor Gu looked at each other with fear. After a moment of silence, Emperor Mo asked, Lu Li, why are you so sure? Could it be that these two races are your enemies from the immortal domain? This isn't actually between the two races, Lu Li explained. According to my speculation, these powerhouses that are infinitely close to the consummate level don't belong to one or two forces. It's more like they were hired. In other words, they were summoned here by the two superclans. It was also possible that these experts were the subordinates of the two superclans. You've all met those two great clans before. They helped the Gue clan to deal with the Grim Reapers. The Feather Emperor exclaimed, the Long-Hair tribe and the Steel Armor tribe. Yes, Lu Li nodded and said, I found powerful warriors of the Long-Hair race over there. They disguised themselves, but I still found them. I found experts from the Iron Armor race and the Tong race. There aren't many experts from these two races. According to my speculation, the two races probably didn't send too many of their own warriors down here. They're using the Tong race and the human race respectively. They want to use the Tong race and the human race to destroy us. Emperor Li and the others understood Lu Li's explanation. Back in the days, the Long-Hair race and the Iron Armor race were the Gue race's backers. The Gue race had to pay tribute to the two races every year. When the Gue race retreated, the two races lost their interest here. Naturally, they were unhappy. It was understandable that they wanted revenge. What happened next was understandable. The two races didn't dare to seek revenge openly for fear of angering the Realm King families. Last time, they sent powerful warriors to intervene in the civil war in the Chaotic Star region. They didn't dare to do anything to Little White or start a war rashly. In the end, they persuaded the Gue race to retreat because they were afraid of angering the Realm King families. According to Lu Li's speculation, the two races had sent a group of powerful warriors to sneak here, to support the human race and the Tong race, to help them fight for supremacy. But they were afraid that the human race and the Tong race would consume too much strength, so they asked them to put on a show. Their real purpose was to muddy the waters of the Chaotic Star region, to deal with the Grim Reapers. Whatever their real purpose was, the fact that the Long-Hair race and the Iron Armor race had sent powerful warriors to sneak here was not a good sign. That was why the alliance was formed. Lu Li had dragged the other 9 masters into this. Otherwise, the Grim Reapers alone would not be able to defeat the Tong race and the human race. What was more, Lu Li suspected that there was another reason why the two races came here. Maybe they were being instructed by the Bei family, the king of the northern region. What else could Lu Li do if he couldn't handle the two races stirring up trouble? He would have to ask for help from Little White. Little White had been cultivating. Upon receiving Lu Li's call for help, Little White would come out at once and bring powerful warriors to kill their way here. In this way, Little White's cultivation would be affected. Little White killed Bio. It would be a lie if the Bei family didn't hate Little White. If Little White could reach the consummate realm, then its position as the king of the eastern region would be secured. By then, it would be difficult to kill Little White, and there would be no way to get revenge. Therefore, the Bei family wanted to stir up trouble here to affect Little White's cultivation and lower the chances of him reaching the consummate realm. Once Little White came here, it would be busy for a while, and then 10 years would be gone. Little White had been cultivating for more than 100 years and never came out. It must be in a deep cultivation state. If it was disturbed, it would be affected. This was just Lu Li's speculation. He didn't know if this was the truth or not. Lu Li didn't share his speculation because he was afraid that Emperor Li would ask him to get Little White. Little White was cultivating. Lu Li wouldn't disturb Little White unless it was absolutely necessary. Emperor Mo and the others were in deep thoughts. After a while, Emperor Li asked, Lu Li, do you have a plan? Are you confident that you can deal with this crisis? Don't be so nervous, Lu Li said with a smile. The two races have more than 200 powerful warriors that are close to the consummate realm. If I wanna, I can kill them all easily. As long as they and the Tong race are dead, they won't be able to do anything. I haven't done anything yet, because I want to observe the situation and find out more. The 10 masters have formed an alliance. For now, we have the upper hand. So don't worry. Once we are disrupted, our enemies will take advantage of us. Emperor Li, Emperor Mo, Emperor Yu, and Ancient Emperor looked at each other speechlessly. If they didn't know Lu Li well, they wouldn't believe him. Lu Li could kill more than 200 powerful warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm. Warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm were not cabbages. Was Lu Li at the consummate realm? How could he put it so casually? Had Lu Li's abilities improved again over the decades? The four of them looked at Lu Li with confusion. Lu Li smiled and said, "My realm is still the same, and I haven't reached the consummate realm. But I have learned another way. I can kill them all in an instant with a sneak attack." Lu Li was not bluffing. The more than 200 powerful warriors were gathered in different locations. He could sneak over and release cold air. Not even those at the consummate realm could stand it. Lu Li believed that once he released a large amount of cold air, those powerful warriors would be frozen in an instant. Even if he could not freeze them to death, he could use fire or ask Blood Fairy to build a formation of destruction. Blood Fairy had said that when she built a formation of destruction, no matter how many warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm came, they would all die. Chapter 36:36. In the following time, the human race and the Tong race continued to fight. The chaotic star region was in chaos, but the 10 masters were not. They kept a close watch on all the universes and sent a message to all the forces under their command not to cause trouble. Therefore, the chaotic star region was not in a mess. The 10 masters did not try to persuade the two races to fight. If they wanted to fight, then fight. They would cheer them on and cheer them on. They would go and celebrate with the winner. The higher-ups of many factions could also see that the two clans had recently started fighting. It wasn't the supreme elders who had died. Instead, some of their subordinates had died. Moreover, they were constantly fighting and stopping. It was obvious that they couldn't afford to continue fighting. Powerhouses that were infinitely close to the great perfection realm were the foundation of the two races. So many of them had died in the past, which was enough to make the two races feel heartache. If they continued to die, no one would be able to afford it. Lu Li suspected that the two races were putting on a show. Not even the great patriarchs of the two races knew about it, not to mention the saint emperors and warriors. They were just suspicious. At the beginning, when Lu Li was investigating the battlefield, the great patriarchs were fighting for real. They were furious. It did not look like they were putting on a show. Usually, the hatred would grow and the battles would become more intense. But recently, it had been less and less. It seemed that the show was not going to go on. The 10 masters did not care. If they wanted to go on, so be it. If they did anything out of line, there was a temporary headquarters at the Serene Moon universe. They could vote at any time, and everyone would react immediately. Lu Li was not at the Serene Moon universe. He went to a nearby universe and entered the realm of magic. He was monitoring the situation of the chaotic star region from the realm of magic, which was the safest place. He could send a message to Emperor Li at the Serene Moon universe at any time. Nothing would happen to the Grim Reaper if nothing happened to him. Lu Li's focus was on the more than 200 powerful warriors and the leaders of the human race and the Tong race. It was a pity that he could not monitor the absolute completion realm. Once he tried, he would be discovered. The real decision was made by the absolute completion realm. So far, Lu Li had not learned the real scheme of the Iron Armor race and the Long Hair race. A patriarch of the Long Hair race was living at the Tong race's side. He would not talk to the patriarchs of the Long Hair race except for the absolute completion realm. Similarly, the patriarch of the Iron Armor race would only talk to the absolute completion realm of the Tong race. Lu Li did not dare to go. Even if he did, he would not find anything. Wait and see. Since Lu Li had the map, he was not afraid of the two races. In any case, whatever they were up to, they would definitely send out experts. He could track them at any time. When the time came, he just had to make arrangements in advance. In other words, with the sovereign map, he was now in an invincible position. As time passed, the atmosphere in the heavenly chaotic star territory became awkward. Right now, the Tong tribe and the human tribe didn't know whether to fight or not. It was as if two men who cared about their reputations were fighting, and there was a crowd of onlookers nearby, but no one came to stop the fight. They just watched coldly from the sidelines. These two men were injured, but because no one stopped them from fighting, they couldn't step down. They couldn't just stop like this, right? Countless races in the chaotic star fields also felt that something was off. The 10 dominators reacted strangely, as did the humans and the Tong tribe. In addition, the 10 hegemons had strictly forbidden them from causing trouble, so the various races didn't dare to act rashly. They were all observing the situation to see what would happen next. After another month, something finally happened. Luli noticed that out of the more than 100 powerful warriors in the human tribe's universe, more than 50 had sneaked out. They were sneaking toward the Tuan tribe's universe. They had a strange battleship that could be completely invisible and could fly in silence. It looked like a ghost ship. Finally, they are coming out of their caves. Luli raised his eyebrows. More than 50 powerful warriors must be up to something. Luli didn't hurry to send a message to the Tuan tribe. He thought for a while and decided to wait until the powerful warriors arrived at the territory of the Tuan tribe. Letting the powerful warriors move could make the 10 hegemons more united. The territories of the Tuan tribe and the human tribe were adjacent. Therefore, after half a month, the dozens of powerful warriors arrived at the border. What shocked Luli was that the more than 50 powerful warriors didn't attack the Tuan tribe's universe. Instead, they began to attack the human tribe's universe. The more than 50 powerful warriors divided themselves into 10 groups and attacked a different universe. They massacred some garrisons, destroyed some cities, and wiped out some races. So cruel, Luli was speechless. The more than 50 powerful warriors were all in disguise, and they were of the same race, the Tuan race. Clearly, they were trying to shift the blame to the Tuan tribe. The human tribe was going to make a move against the Tuan tribe. Luli recorded everything with a memory crystal, including the appearance of the powerful warriors when they arrived, when they disguised themselves, when they slaughtered, and when they left. Everything was recorded. The map was amazing. Everything Luli saw could be recorded by the memory crystal. No wonder it was a treasure of an almighty God's level. Luli could not decipher the strangeness of the map with normal logic and thinking. He had to explain it with the means of an almighty God, a piece of treasure that could observe the entire world. If the news was spread out, all the warriors in the world would be in a frenzy. One day after the incident, the human tribe sent out a notice asking why the Tuan tribe was attacking them. The wording was harsh. The human tribe told the Tuan tribe to give them an answer in 10 days, or else they would declare war against the Tuan tribe. The 10 hegemons had sent out all of their scouts. These realms all had scouts from the various powers, so the 10 hegemons were able to find out what had happened. After all, with so many realms being massacred at the same time, it was hard not to notice. The Tuan tribe was taken aback. They sent a message to their headquarters at once, stating that they did not send out any powerful warriors to attack. They asked the headquarters to send a message to the other forces to discuss what to do. The other forces were confused at first. Based on what they found out, they were indeed powerful warriors of the Tuan tribe. Now, as soon as the Tuan tribe sent a message, they knew there was a conspiracy. Luli sent a copy of the memory crystal to the temporary headquarters. The patriarchs of the Tuan tribe understood immediately. The patriarch of the Tuan tribe was so angry that he cursed and shouted for all the dominators to send out troops to wipe out the Tuan tribe. Emperor Li sent a message from Luli, telling everyone to be patient. With the memory crystal, they were in an invincible position. Let the Tuan tribe shout for a while. After all, the Tuan tribe could prove their innocence at any time. Also, Luli told the 10 dominators to be on standby and be ready to attack at any time. In case the Tuan tribe, the Tong tribe, and other forces from the immortal region were driven to desperate measures and attacked by force. During this time, Luli was thinking about whether he should take the initiative to attack and wipe out all the powerful warriors from the immortal region. As long as those powerful warriors were killed, the Tuan tribe and the Tong tribe would not be in chaos. This time, the Tuan tribe and the Tong tribe had gone back on their agreement, which was almost a betrayal. The Tuan tribe and the Tong tribe had colluded with forces from the immortal region to deal with him. They were mortal enemies. If the Tuan tribe and the Tong tribe were not wiped out, what if they came back and caused more trouble? Let's do it all. A glint of cruelty rose in Lu Li's eyes. Since the Tuan tribe and the Tong tribe were helping the Iron Armor tribe and the Long Hair tribe to deal with him, they should not blame him for being merciless. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.